in Europe. So correct me if I'm wrong.
No, we've not.
We haven't. Anyway, look, we're going to be talking lots of football today. Of course, lots of rugby. England, New Zealand, of course, Wales, South Africa as well. It's all hotting up, isn't it, on the back pages in regards to the rugby. Eddie Jones, lots of fun as always. A few interesting press conferences. I don't feel like we've had enough mind games from him, though, so far.
Oh, really?
I wanted a little bit more. Yeah, I don't know. I had a feeling that by this point, we'd have all sorts of different accusations going on.
Well, like what?
Well, he started the week strong. You know, the spying accusations. I thought he started the week really, really strong. And I think, if anything, he went all out straight away, and he hasn't really kept anything back.
Yeah, I know. I know what you mean. I'm waiting for him to use some kind of like deep fake video technology to just really humiliate an opposition coach.
Yeah.
You know, he just leaks a video of him like doing shots at like 5 a.m. and in a walkabout, and it's not him, but he just does it anyway.
One of these dodgy videos where you can pretty much tell the body is of somebody else, and you've got this face that kind of moves because it's not quite in sync with the actual face.
If that would be ideal, actually, if Eddie Jones could just put something out like that, just on the eve. Oh, well, now, actually, it'd have to be now, wouldn't it?
I'll tell you what, let's see if he's got any plans to do this. Let's hear from Eddie Jones.
Your job as a coach is to minimise the stress for your players and allow them to be free, allow them to have a clear head, allow them to play with energy and use their natural ability during the game.
It's all quite serious from Eddie Jones, you see. That's what I mean. We just almost feel like we need a little bit more.
Yeah, I know. I mean, he did ramp up the Spygate thing, didn't he?
I enjoyed that. Really enjoyed that. Yeah.
I think we should message in 0208 70 20 558. What myths / lies / mind games can Eddie Jones peddle today?
I'm in. Let's do it. And as always, you can get in touch at Love Sport Radio on the socials. We are on YouTube as well these days. Feel free to tune in, leave us a comment as you often do. We've got a brilliant show lined up. I'm excited. It's Friday as well. Big weekend of sport coming up. So do stay tuned. It's 19 minutes to 7.
This is Love Sport.
Hi, I'm Dean. I work for a successful shipping company in Suffolk. Ever since I heard about people's success with the spokesmansaid.com, I knew I had to investigate for myself. Every time I need to compare car insurance, home insurance and energy bills, I always contact a spokesmansaid.com. This year alone, I saved over £260 on my car insurance and also £585 on my energy bills. I saved big through a spokesmansaid.com, and you could too.
With a spokesmansaid.com, fighting for you, saving you money.
Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October. This means that travelling to the EU will change. You'll need to check online if your passport is valid for travel to Europe. If you're planning on driving, you'll need to check if you have the right documents to drive. And make sure your travel insurance covers all your healthcare needs. To keep your trip on track, check what you need to do at gov.uk/Brexit. Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October.
This is Ian Stone. I'm here on Love Sport Radio every Saturday afternoon from 12 till 3. My father said I could have been a professional footballer. My father was a big fan of mine. I was 21 years old and I was playing for a team. My father was the manager and made me Player of the Year.
Oh.
He walked into the dressing room and he went, Player of the Year this year? Well, I think it's Ian. Ian Stone every Saturday afternoon, 12 till 3.
Love Sport.
Hello, I'm Tim from Bolsover. I'm a retired teacher. I was looking for a better electricity deal from my parents when I got an email from a spokesman said it was a fixed deal for 2 years, which was better for my parents, less for them to worry about. And when I had a look at the sums, I had to recheck because I couldn't quite believe it. They were going to save over £900 each year they were on that deal. Needless to say, we signed up pretty quickly.
With a spokesmansaid.com, fighting for you, saving you money.
Love Sport.
That's for breakfast. Me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys here with you until 10. Touched on Celtic. Brilliant win. They beat Lazio 2-1, which, by the way, Celtic beating Lazio 2-1. Credit to them. Just to touch on the Italian fans, pictured making fascist salutes.
Oh, were they?
Yeah, during this game. So we'll probably touch on that at some point. But yeah, but Celtic did win, and it was a last-minute winner. Julian with the goal. That's good. Do you know what? I am pleased because we give the Scottish League a little bit of stick, but actually Celtic and Rangers now, it feels like that rivalry is starting to happen again. And if it does, that just brings up the whole league. It brings up the whole of Scotland.
Brings up the whole of Scotland.
Literally.
Yeah, just drags it.
Yeah.
Right out the gutter. So can we all agree as well? I think it looks better with Neil Lennon in the Celtic dugout.
Do you think, rather than...
I think so. I think he embodies that kind of like quite scratty, rough and ready look that you expect from Celtic Football Club. Do you know what I mean?
He fits.
Got the flame hair.
Yeah.
He's got that kind of... He always looks like he's... Oh, is he laughing? Is he going to headbutt me? Is he laughing? Is he going to headbutt me? I don't quite know where I stand. You know?
Quite like to have that fear in a manager, don't you?
Yeah.
The unpredictability.
Yeah, the volatility, the uncertainty, the danger. That's what you get with Neil Lennon in a way that you just don't get from Brendan Rodgers and his porcelain teeth.
Well, let's hear from Neil Lennon, shall we?
It's been an epic night for the players in the club. You know, to go toe-to-toe with Lazio and come away with 3 points, it's a huge shot in the arm for the team.
It is a huge shot in the arm. They're very good. I've only seen the highlights this one, if I'm honest, but they were very good from what I've seen. And look, it is good. We go back to the rivalry between them and Rangers, because for me, the fact that Steven Gerrard's there as well, that's obviously brought things up as well. Like, Rangers have gradually been getting back to where they were, but you do feel this season they're going to give Celtic a run for their money. I still think Celtic will edge it in the league, but again, it's good to see. And if anything, it's more... I think where the last 10 years or so have been such a mess in Scotland, it is more the kids. Like, you want to see that you've got a team or two teams that you can look at and be really, really proud of what they're doing, not just in Scotland, but also in Europe as well. It's games like this, nights like this, that will actually inspire the younger generation.
Scotland have got some decent players now, actually.
Yeah.
They've got, they've got Andy Robertson, they've got Scott McTominay, they've got Kieran Tierney.
Let's touch on Tierney, because obviously yesterday for Arsenal, he arguably got exposed a bit early on. And of course, the opening goal for Victoria was from, down his side. A couple of chances came down his side, and he might have done a little bit better. But then he did assist the first goal, lovely ball into the box. I like what I see of him so far.
Yeah,
he looks good.
He's a good player. He came out and said that he'd been struggling to settle into London. It's a big city, it's a new place and all that for him. And I think he's on his own as well for the first time. So that was obviously a bit of a struggle for him, but he seems to be there now. By all accounts, he's just quite a quiet, insular lad. He just turns up to training, goes home, and that's it.
Yeah, sounds about right. We're going to be talking business shortly. We're going to be talking a little bit of rugby as well. Of course, England, New Zealand is coming up very shortly. Just on England, New Zealand, and you've now heard all the build-up. We've heard the fact that none of these New Zealand players have ever lost a World Cup game, which is slightly frightening.
Yeah, terrifying.
Yeah, and New Zealand are heavy favourites. It's true.
Well, they're certainly heavy. So just this England team, that just to run you through it: Watson, Tuilagi, Farrell, Ford, Daly, Youngs, May, Curry, Vunipola, Underhill, Laws, Itoje, Vunipola, George, and Sinclair. So it's a strong side. It is one of the two teams in this World Cup that could probably beat New Zealand.
Well, look, like I said, we've got several guests on the line. We are going to be speaking in the next hour to Mike Coleman, author of Eddie Jones' Rugby Maverick. We'll also be speaking to Ry Hooper about Wolves. We'll be speaking to Harry Elliso, former England scrum half, about this too. But we're going to take a little bit of a break from the sport because, of course, this time in the morning means just one thing. Wait for Patrick. This is a bit. Oh yeah, it's Friday. Chris Bailey, founder of financialorbit.com. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, that Friday reveal was kind of just disturbing, wasn't it? I don't know what those groans at the end were.
No,
well, Patrick. Sorry,
that Patrick. He does it throughout the show. Yeah. I think it's just a bad diet more than anything, if I'm honest. Lots going on in the business world. Let's talk about Twitter. I hear the shares have slumped.
Yeah, shares fell 20-odd% yesterday, which is not a good day at the office for any shareholders. They actually did all right in terms of new subscribers. They had another 6 million following, 140-odd million daily impressions, users, whatever. But the trouble is they didn't make any money, and that was the big problem. The profits went down a lot, and that was why the shares went down. There was another big bit of news from Twitter, actually, I noticed in the release. They said that you have actually more followers than Love Sport Radio on Twitter. Is that true?
Well, you know, when you've got the little blue tick.
You've got the blue tick as well. How'd you get the blue tick?
Well, Chris, you don't know about my past, but I was quite a big deal back in the day.
Oh, there you go. Well, I'm impressed.
He used to warm up the other goalkeepers.
I did the whole follow back thing where you just follow everyone and beg for a follow back, and in time you build a following. Who knew?
There you go. Well,
How many of them did you pay for?
I didn't pay for it.
You haven't bought any followers?
No, I haven't bought any
You know,
followers.
because I can check.
You can check. Please feel free to check.
Okay.
Okay. This is going down a completely different route. I do want to ask you about this, though, because Twitter aren't the only ones like this who don't make a profit and have never made a profit, yet are worth an absolute fortune.
It's like WeWork.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, WeWork's worse in the sense that, as we talked earlier in the week, I mean, the bonkers sort of payoffs and everything else. Well, Twitter do make a little bit of money, but just not very much. And you're right, though, when you contrast to how much the company's worth, because it's all on hope, right? And essentially, the way the stock market works is that with these fledgling tech companies, and, Twitter's still relatively new. Look at Amazon as an even bigger example. They had some numbers out yesterday. Profits went down a bit, shares fell, but they're still worth, thick end of a trillion quid. It's all on hope, and that's the way the stock market works. It's what's coming that matters rather than what's gone or what's kind of even being achieved at the moment. So it's that game of sort of moving between the two. That's the big issue.
Yeah,
so there's still big hope with Twitter, and you've got to say, it's a massively interesting set of information. Including all our own accounts, of course.
Of course. We put out some quality content. Barclays U-turn over ban on post office cash withdrawals.
Yeah, now this is Barclays actually got their corporate numbers out in about 15 minutes' time, and I think sensibly they've done a bit of a U-turn on. They were going to stop liaising with the post office to allow cash withdrawals for Barclays customers from the post office, and I think that makes huge sense because clearly we are all using cash less, but there is still a thick slice of people who actually do want to withdraw cash on a regular basis, want to use it, particularly the elderly, etc. And to stop Barclays card holders and account holders from accessing their cash at the post office, when you go in there and it's, you put your card in and it works out that you can withdraw cash, etc. Would have been a bit short-sighted, I think. But ultimately, let's face it, bigger picture, we are all going to mobile commerce and the like, but we can at least still get cash out from the post office for your Barclays customer for the foreseeable future.
Fantastic. And last but not least, Quick Quid owner. These payday lenders seem to be struggling, but Quick Quid owner on brink of collapse as the payday lender complaints surge.
Yeah, that's right. Well, Quick Quid, I think, it's aptly named for the company historically that owned it rather than those that borrowed money from it. But anyway, fortunately, I think the oxygen of publicity has been all over this sector, and people have started to, withdraw licenses and related, and quite rightly so, because the sector's been a right old mess. Obviously, Wonga was a huge car crash a few years back. Quick Quid's owners have decided to withdraw, to leave this business. They're actually an American company. Greater regulation, greater oversight, and the fact that, quite rightly, a lot of people are saying some of the interest rates charged were absolutely ridiculous. And, my top tip would be, if possible, do not use these type of lenders. It's just not worth it. There are hopefully other things you can be doing, even if you have to go via Citizens Advice or whatever else in order to avoid that. I'm glad to see these people going out of business.
Yeah, good advice, Mr. Chris Bailey. What are the plans for the weekend, out of interest?
Plans for the weekend are very, very busy with a whole load of work. I think it's going to keep me busy for the next 24 hours plus. But then hopefully a little bit of relaxation. I guess there's loads of sport on this weekend. So looking forward to see whether England can win the rugby and Arsenal can get back to winning ways.
Fantastic. Great stuff. Mr. Chris Bailey, founder of financialorbit.com. Have a fantastic weekend. Patrick Christys, when Chris says he's got a bit of downtime, relaxation, I think we know what that means, don't we? Yeah, I think we'll no doubt be seeing him crawling out of a nightclub at 4 a.m.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, one on each arm.
Yeah, yeah, classic Chris.
Gets into the kind of the blacked out Bentley.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean.
Chauffeur driven.
Yeah, just puts the window down a little bit just to give the paps enough of a sniff.
Yeah. Is that Mr. Bailey? It is, isn't it?
Oh my gosh, it's Bales. Yeah, exactly. Nice. Off we go.
Let's talk a bit of rugby.
Belgravia, please. Obviously.
There you go.
Yeah.
Boom. Phil Vickery doesn't want to remain the only England team to win a World Cup.
I came out of the England camp before they went away. I was down in Bristol, got invited in, which was amazing. And everyone says, what did it feel like? I mean, goodness gracious me. I came out of there thinking, wow, physicality, the athletes, the detail, the training. I'm thinking, wow, the skills. I'm thinking, what an incredible group of athletes. And bear in mind, I'm a front row forward who liked to drink and a pork pie.
Yeah.
It was amazing, It was amazing. I felt uplifted, and I thought, wow, if these boys can do it on the rugby field, I'll tell you what, it'll just be tremendous. And I know I'm kind of glass half full person, and I'm not afraid to be critical. I truly believe that these boys can do it. And, you know, do I want to be, for the next 4 years, the only Rugby World Cup winner again? No, I do not. Go on, lads. Go and get after it. You can change your life.
Phil Vickery there. He was on the breakfast show yesterday, wasn't he, Patrick?
Absolute legend, isn't he?
Isn't he just?
Absolute hero, yes. And I think it's someone like that where you think someone has been there and done that. He told this brilliant story about how he was walking out and it was in the semi-final of the World Cup in 2007, and England were playing France at the Stade de France. And he walked out and looked their captain in the eye, and he realised from that moment on that they'd won the game because he'd kind of mentally made him bottle it and stuff like that. I thought, it's quite powerful stuff.
That's pretty cool.
Also, I was terrified of him.
Yeah, no, I'm not surprised.
Even down the other end of the phone, I was just really scared.
Really, yeah. You're just making sure you called yourself a different name just for safety.
Yeah, and then I came out of it and I was greeted by an actual cage fighter whose name I can't remember because he wasn't on my show. But I went from Phil Vickery to a man who was in the same room as me, who definitely knows about 30 different ways to kill me.
Right.
And it's funny as well, because everyone out there was going, hit him, oh, go on, choke him out and stuff. And I was like, hey, I don't want to hurt the guy.
Sounds like a fun day.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like I missed out on quite a bit.
Yeah.
Right, what else is going on? Let's touch on a few of the front pages, if that's okay, Mr. Patrick Christys. I know there is quite a bit going on.
Yeah, look, there's a lot going on, and it's clearly not an uplifting story. In fact, quite the opposite. The trucker arrested over 39 dead migrants. These were the ones that were found in the back of a lorry in Essex. He's called Mo Robinson. He's 25. He was last night still being held on suspicion of mass murder. However, well, I'll see what comes out about that, to be honest with you, because other details emerging are that he actually only picked up this particular trailer between 35 minutes and 2 hours before the bodies were discovered. Yeah. It is understood that he called the police and the ambulance service and then fainted upon seeing, obviously, what must have been a very distressing scene. And there are fears growing that this could be part of a Chinese snakehead gang operation, which is essentially a major Chinese crime syndicate that people smuggles right around the world, basically.
Wow.
Yeah.
Horrendous story.
This is, shocker. I think it was a couple of days ago you were here, and it was about 5 minutes before the end of the show.
We had a really lively, upbeat show.
Yeah, and then I just had to break the news that 39 people have been found dead in the back of a lorry. So, but we'll have to wait and see what comes of this. Police are running out of time to charge him because they've already had an extension of 24 hours. So we're going to have to wait and see what happens. But you just sense with this story, there's a huge amount to run with this. A lot of unknowns at the moment.
It does feel like that. And just quick one on Boris. What's the latest with our man?
Boris is still Boris. He is relentlessly throwing down the gauntlet of a general election to Jeremy Corbyn, who is relentlessly saying, no, I don't want it. And I mean, it's 2019 when the leader of the opposition doesn't want to get into power, no?
Yeah, strange.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, look, we've got lots coming in the next hour, so do stay tuned. We are going to be talking to Mike Coleman, author of Eddie Jones' Rugby Maverick. We're talking to Harry Ellis, former England scrum half. Also, Raya Hooper, Wolves fancast. Of course, a big win for Wolves last night at the time. It's 3 minutes to 7.
This is Love Sport.
Hi, I'm Marilyn from Oxfordshire. My current insurance company quoted £245.08 to reinsure. And a spokesman said, obtain me a price of £173.49 for the same cover. This was a fantastic saving for me. And next time my car insurance comes up for renewal, I will be going through a spokesman said. No doubt about that.
With a spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October. Brexit will bring changes that affect businesses in many ways, particularly if you buy from EU suppliers, sell to EU customers, provide services to EU clients, and receive customer data from other businesses in the EU. Businesses need to prepare. Find out how at gov.uk/Brexit. Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October.
Join me, you and Thomas and the Posh Boys here on Love Sport Drive this Friday as we count down to the Rugby World Cup semi-finals. All the build-up to England versus New Zealand and a massive weekend of football, all on Love Sport.
Love Sport. Are you paying way over the odds for your car insurance? The spiralling costs put people off driving, full stop. But you're a careful driver, and realistically, you'll only need an insurance payout if some halfwit cuts you off on the M1. So you shouldn't be forced to pay massive car insurance premiums. And you don't have to. Go to price comparison site spokesmansaid.com today and find out the best value car insurance deals on the market. Don't pay the price for not shopping around.
Spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
Love Sport Breakfast. Me, Richard Lee. Patrick Christys is my guest. In fact, he's not my guest. He's my co-presenter. My guest.
Take my shoes off before I go into the studio.
Hey, enjoy it. Just feel at home, okay? Enjoy the show. Do stay with us. We've got a lot coming up in the next hour. We are, of course, be talking a lot of rugby because we've got a big weekend of rugby. We're going to be speaking to Mike Coleman, author of Eddie Jones' Rugby Maverick, speaking to Harry Ellis, former England scrum half, Right Hooper Wolves fancast. I want to talk to you about the game I went to as well, Wednesday night, Bristol City, Charlton.
Oh, yes.
So I am going to be talking about that shortly because, interesting. Obviously, Charlton doing as well as they are, although just starting to gradually slide down the table. However, they were very good the other night, so we'll talk about that as well. As always, you can get in touch, 0208 70 20 558 on the WhatsApp, at Love Sport Radio on the socials, or on YouTube too, of course. We are live now. So stay with me and my guest, Patrick Christys.
On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker. This is Love Sport News.
From the Sky News Centre at 7, European leaders could announce whether they'll allow another Brexit extension to push the deadline beyond the end of this month. If granted, Boris Johnson says he'll ask for the Commons to vote for a general election in December, but some opposition parties say they're against the idea. Police have begun removing the 39 bodies found in a refrigerated lorry trailer in Essex. Police believe they're all Chinese, but that's not been confirmed by China. The driver remains in custody this morning. Naomi Phillips from the British Red Cross says anyone brought into the country in this way should be treated with sympathy.
Whichever route people have come by, there's always an element of control, there's always an element of exploitation, and we should be treating people as victims and providing the safety, dignity and protection that they deserve and that they need.
A man's due in court later charged with the murder of 2 teenagers at a house party in Milton Keynes. Charlie Chandler is also accused of 2 counts of attempted murder. The Department of Health says it's incredibly concerned by the decline in vaccination rates among children. A report's found targets were missed for 6 out of 7 preschool jabs in England last year. Hundreds of tourists have climbed one of the world's best-known landmarks for a final time. Uluru in Australia, also known as Ayers Rock, is being permanently closed tomorrow because of its spiritual significance to Aboriginal people. The issue has divided Australians ever since the park was returned to its Indigenous owners.
I'm glad that we've sort of travelled all this way to actually get on the rock. It'll be great.
I'm not climbing the rock today because I think it's sacrilegious.
It is a religious place, a place of religion, a place of worship.
I don't see the harm in climbing, so long as you don't damage anything.
And Wales have named Lee Halfpenny as fullback for their Rugby World Cup semi-final with South Africa on Sunday. He replaces the injured Liam Williams. That's the latest. I'm Kat Suave.
This is Love Sport.
Time is money. Or so money says. Well, money. I know you like to dictate every hour of every day, add to my to-do list and throw the odd spanner in the works. But not anymore. This is my business, and I run it on my watch. I'm in control now, money, and times are changing. Save time with instant business invoicing, now on the Barclays app. Search Barclays Business and make money work for you.
Must have a Barclays business account. T's and C's apply.
Love Sport Radio. On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker. This is Love Sport Breakfast with Richard Lee and Patrick Christys.
Good morning. Love Sport Breakfast, Love Sport Radio. Me, Richard Lee. Patrick Christys here with you until 10. Let's touch on the headlines this morning. Lots of rugby news this morning because, of course, it is semi-final weekend. England taking on New Zealand, Wales taking on South Africa. We've got a couple of good guests this hour to talk about that. We will be speaking to Mike Coleman, author of Eddie Jones, Rugby Maverick, and Harry Ellis, former England scrum half. It was a good night in the Europa League for our British sides. Wins for Wolves, Arsenal, Manchester United, Celtic, and a great draw for Rangers as well. We'll be talking about that shortly. We've got some guests on the line for that too, and plenty more to come as well this hour. And, well, until 10 a.m. with me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys. Patrick, how are we?
Yeah, very well, thank you, Rich. Decent night. It's been a last 2 days, and no English club has lost in Europe.
Do you know what? And you look at it last year, the fact that we had, 4 English clubs made the quarter-final of the Champions League. Of course, we had the 2 that made the final itself. So, brilliant season last season.
2 in the Europa League.
And 2 in the Europa League, of course, yeah. And then you look at it this season again. Look, I think it's safe to say we are now head and shoulders above the rest in terms of the best league in the world. Is that a...
Yeah. Well, Joe Hart's been head and shoulders above the rest for quite a while.
That's
yeah, no, we are. I think we're unequivocally the best. Yeah. And also, we're not saying this in this classic British arrogance way, like we say about loads of the NHS, best ruddy health service in the world. Well, it's not, is it? It's by no means. Good British education. It's the best education. It's not at all. But actually, the Premier League
is.
It's the best ruddy league in the world, mate.
And this is where a lot of the different suggestions that come in regards to the Premier League and changes, I'm always wary because we're so good. Look, obviously, it all comes down to money. Everyone wants to play in England. Every player, literally every player, other than maybe certain Spanish players, everybody wants to play in England now.
I mean, I can think of one creative midfield player at Arsenal that doesn't really want to play in England.
That's true.
Yeah, but apart from that, I take your point.
Doesn't mind playing at home from time to time, just doesn't really like playing away.
Yeah.
Although he didn't play yesterday either. We're going to talk about him. We're going to talk about Arsenal, of course. I'm assuming you mean Ozil.
Who?
No names?
Oh.
Right.
Oh, no, he would apply, though.
He would?
Yeah,
very true. We're going to be talking about Manchester United, one of the teams that were successful last night, although, once again, not a brilliant performance.
It was a European night where stars were born and men became men, and it was a 1-0 win away at Partizan.
It was. But it was a good way. It put some control in it.
With a running track round it and firemen behind the pitch.
Dreadful, didn't it?
Why was that? This was never addressed enough in the 80s. Why were there always firemen behind the goals? And why on earth were they there again last night?
That's true.
What do they think's going to happen?
It's kind of one of those jobs where they're given the job and they're thinking, I've literally got nothing to do here, but I'm not going to turn it down.
Okay, Sergey, you got the massive hose. Yeah. You just wait, mate. You just wait. You wait.
Any day now.
Yeah.
Let's hear from Ole Gunnar Solskjaer on his side's performance last night.
We showed some grit in that respect. We could have defended better up front. We should have stopped them. They pushed us back. We need to get more intensity in our pressing. But yeah, proud and kept another clean sheet.
Right. So this is the positive for United this season, isn't it? Defensively, they have improved.
Yeah, yes, they have.
I mean, Romero in goal last night, by the way, which, again, every time he performs, I'm really impressed with him. He's another one that just... obviously, David De Gea is fantastic, but you just feel that Romero, if he were given a prolonged period, which I thought might have been the case when you're hearing rumours that De Gea's injured for 2 months and then plays the next game. I don't really know.
That was weird.
Very strange. I don't mind games, maybe. I'm not sure. But I'm not sure how you limp off out of a game for Spain and then play the next game. I think if you're the Spanish national team, you're looking at it thinking, okay, well, you're really that bad.
Yeah.
Coming off. Anyway, but Romero again did well. For United, it is positives, isn't it, to take, which is that, look, a positive performance against Liverpool, of course. This is another positive. The thing is, they're not necessarily becoming a team that are a fluid, free-flowing Man City type. What they're now becoming is tough to beat, which you could argue is the first port of call. It's not great. I know it's not great. It's not what you want, but I guess if you're going to do it in stages, first thing, get that bit right, and then you've got a base to build from.
Yeah, but it was, he made 7 changes, didn't he? And it was quite a weaker side in a lot of senses. You had players like Garner making his debut and things like that, full debut. So it's like, I looked at it, I didn't think it wasn't like a full-strength Manchester United team. Like, I think that impressed me about Solskjaer, that even despite the fact that he is under so much pressure, he didn't just go out and pick everyone that he had at his disposal. He did let people have a chance, as it were. I thought it was a decent win. It was okay. It's good to get under the belt, but yeah, it's not exciting to watch anymore at all, and hasn't been for quite some time.
What needs to happen for that? Is that going to happen under Solskjaer's reign? I guess that's the question. Is it then going to be a case of needing to change that, or is Solskjaer? is it kind of, I suppose you look at a business. If you're building a business, you do it in different phases, and you don't have like phase 1, you want to make sure the business is profitable, for instance. Phase 2, you then build, etc., etc. Is it almost like that, where phase 1, right, let's make sure that actually we're not flooding goals like they have done last season. The season before last, they were defensively pretty good under Mourinho. Last season they were a shambles. This season it feels like they're getting that bit right again, which if they do, and then maybe they get that number 9, which they've been talking about for a long period of time, or if Rashford does end up being that player, which doesn't look likely at the moment, but then you kind of feel, okay, once you've got that base, then we'll start to see that side of United.
Yeah, that's it. I think the thing was so broken at Manchester United. It was so devoid of any kind of coherent plan that it was a monumental rebuilding job, is a monumental rebuilding job. And yeah, you said before about the fact that they're now becoming hard to beat, I suppose. Well, that is stage 1, isn't it? And that is stage 1, and then hopefully from there, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer can just build on that.
This is it. Well, last night they only had against them only 2 shots on target, which is good, better.
Well, look, mate, we were playing Partizan Belgrade.
What I was going to say though is, guess how many shots United had on target?
I don't know.
1.
Really?
So, but does that even surprise you anymore?
Yeah, but this is what I don't understand. Why don't they just shoot? No, seriously, why don't you just shoot? Why do we get to the end of a game and it's regularly United 1 shot on target? Why doesn't anyone just get the ball on the edge of the box and just hit it?
Yeah.
Just so at least at the end of the game.
In fact, interestingly, I suppose part of the issue then will be the creativity, part of the issue will be the number 9, you could argue. Look, defensively, it looks like they are improving. They had more possession last night, interestingly, 60% possession. They only had the 2 shots on target against them. So there are certainly positives there. When you look at them going forward, do they have someone who can unlock the door? Do they have somebody do they have that number 9? You could argue they don't have either. Interestingly, Paul Scholes says that Manchester United should sign Ozil.
Yeah.
We think you might have got the answer, though. Mesut Ozil. I knew you wouldn't want me to say this on there, but we were watching the game and you said someone like Ozil would make a real difference in this team. He's completely not involved for Arsenal this evening.
Yeah, no, I can't understand that. I think he's a player who can link a team together. I think he's got great quality. He's shown that in his career. He could be an answer short term, I don't know. I think that would be up to him, ultimately, if he wants to take a...
Could you imagine it happening?
No, I probably can't, but I just think he's a type of player, short term, that United could do with.
Paul Scholes has become quite outspoken in his old age, it feels.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of opinion. Right, it's an interesting one, this one for me, because I think that what I would say, I don't think it'd be a good signing for a start. If there's obviously nothing in this whatsoever other than Paul Scholes watching a game and suddenly saying, oh, Ozil could be good in that particular situation right there. He might have been able to find that pass. So there's nothing in this. But if you were to imagine Ozil in a Man United shirt, is he a good fit? Sanchez wasn't, but this then goes back to the point where Sanchez then goes to, I know he's injured now, but goes to Inter Milan, makes a positive start. He was fantastic at Arsenal. Certain players fit certain systems. Ozil doesn't necessarily fit the Arsenal way at the moment. However, how often are we seeing that where he might make a move sideways, which is what it is, make a move sideways, and then potentially be a superstar again?
I think the issue that I've got with Mesut Ozil is the fact that he just doesn't look like he enjoys playing the game anymore.
Doesn't look like he enjoys football.
He doesn't look like he enjoys football, and so it doesn't really matter what club environment he's dropped into. Just in a practical sense, United do need a creative midfield player who can, pick gaps and unlock a back four. And short of James Maddison, I haven't really seen them linked with too many other people who are realistic targets. The only thing I would say about the Ozil element of it is that maybe if he's so out of love with Emery and so out of love with Arsenal and he goes to United, he might have the bit between his teeth and just try and mug him off a bit.
Yeah.
And actually, United would only need him to play well about 20 times.
Well,
and it'd be all right.
People underestimate this is your motivation. People underestimate that. Look, Ozil, it's not like he's a bad player now. That's not the case. I think most Arsenal fans would agree when they see him and he's in full flow. I watched the game he played against Watford the other week. He was brilliant. You could see the Ozil that was there not so long ago, and the Ozil that has won the World Cup, the Ozil that is at the level that he has. So, I don't know. It's one of them, as you say. If he had the motivation, had the bit between his teeth, then I'm sure we'd see the best of him again. Another player I just want to touch on, Brandon Williams last night. One of the big positives for United. Arguably man of the match. A little stat. Youngest player to win a penalty for Manchester United since Januzaj. So there you go. 19 years old he is, 51 days.
That wasn't that long ago, was it?
Not really.
No.
No.
I'd known Januzaj.
No. I mean, I was just trying to find...
This is the first coffee I've had since yesterday.
Since an hour ago.
Oh, yeah.
I was trying to find a stat on him, something of interest, but he was a positive. And in fact, we can hear from Ole Gunnar Solskjaer on Brandon Williams.
For me, Brandon was man of the match. He's been fantastic the few games he's played. and the boy has no fear. He's brave as a lion, and he got us the win.
brave as a lion. He was very, very, very good. I'll just slap the pen that I'm playing with. Sorry about that, Patrick. I just snapped the pen. I think I've broken it.
Right in the eye.
He was very good. You'll be fine. You got another one. He was very good. I think, if again looking for positives from Man United, he would be one.
Yes, that this absolutely unknown child that we brought onto the pitch at some point in a European Cup tie wasn't a total shocker. Fantastic. You and I, T-E-T, United are the team for me.
14 minutes past 7.
Love sport. Are you being fobbed off by a company? Are they letting you down? And are your complaints falling on deaf ears? We can help you out. Come to aspokesmansaid.com and we will give you a voice and a platform to raise your complaints. As recommended in the Daily Telegraph, aspokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
Are you paying way too much for your energy bills? A spokesman said could help you save big money. With electricity costs continuing to rise, you could save hundreds of pounds by shopping around. Just go to aspokesmansaid.com and look for the very best value energy deals on the market. Don't waste your hard-earned cash. You could be on a much cheaper deal. Go to aspokesmansaid.com.
Fighting for you, saving you money.
You all right, mate? Yeah, I'm fine. Yeah? Really? It's just, there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it, sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
It's cancer, they said. My first thought, let's just say it wasn't money, but time off work for treatment and trips to the hospital, paying the rent, and the cost of living doesn't go away just because you're living with cancer, and Macmillan can help with that too. My advice? Take their advice. Soon as. I did.
Macmillan, right there with you. Search Macmillan Money Worries.
Hello, my name's Paula. I'm from the Shropshire area and I'm a business development manager. I use a spokesman said for my car insurance where I've saved over £500 and also on travel insurance as well. So in total, me and my family have saved about £600. I would definitely use it again and I would definitely recommend it.
With aspokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
This is Love Sport.
We definitely saw someone, and there was never an accusation that it was New Zealand.
So it's not mind games?
Well, what do you define as mind games?
Maybe this is sort of talk that we're having right now.
Okay, then we're having mind games.
I love the guy.
Yeah.
Every interview I hear, he grows on me.
Yeah, they asked him yesterday as well, something like, is your England team hungry for success? And he's like, we're not very hungry, we just had loads of sushi. Had some fantastic beef and just went on. I was like, okay, Eddie, all right, mate.
What a guy. Well, look, someone else who loves Eddie Jones as well. I'm assuming loves because he is the author of Eddie Jones' Rugby Maverick. Maybe he doesn't. Mike Coleman. Morning, Mike.
Good morning, how are you?
Good morning. Yeah, very well, very well. No, I'm really keen to speak to you about... We've been talking a lot over the last couple of weeks. Obviously, he's been all over the back pages, Eddie Jones, and I just love some of the quotes he comes out with. And, of course, you spent a lot of time studying the man himself, so I've got lots of questions for you. First and foremost, the book, Eddie Jones, Rugby Maverick. Just give us a bit of a background on the book.
Well, I used to cover Eddie when he was the coach of the Wallabies. I also had a lot of interest in him even back in the days when he was playing rugby for Randwick. He was such a different sort of character on the Australian sporting scene, a little half Japanese, half Australian hooker playing in arguably the best club rugby side of all time alongside the Ella brothers. So he was always a very exotic sort of character, and I was looking for a book to write. I write a book every year or so, and Eddie just came to mind. I'd had a bit to do with him during the Rugby World Cup, the last Rugby World Cup, and I've always got along pretty well with him, and I'm like you, I'm just fascinated by him. I think he's a lot of fun. He's a complex character, and I thought, well, I want someone that I can really get into and someone who I'll enjoy writing about. I got onto him and said, will you do a book? And unfortunately, he was already committed to a publisher to do a book which is going to come out after the World Cup. But he was still pretty helpful. He read the proofs and he pointed out a few things that he wasn't happy with. And then when the book came out and we updated it for the World Cup, he gave me an interview, and there's a bit of a chapter there where he does talk. But as I say, I'm like you. I just think he's the most interesting person in rugby, certainly, and one of the most interesting people in world sport.
Could you just try and unpack his character a little bit for us? Because we only really see what we see in press conferences and things. And, the mind games element of it clearly just seems to be one. He seems like he's very competitive and quite combative at times as well. But are you able to just kind of go into a bit more detail on that?
Well, he certainly is very competitive, combative, as you say. He's very intelligent. And I think all this stuff in the press, I mean, as a journalist, I think you know, Patrick, just how boring it can be to go along to a press conference and have a stony-faced coach who just says yes, no, and maybe. But I think Eddie's having as much fun with the press as the press has with Eddie. It's all part of the game. But as part of the coaching is concerned, I mean, he takes it incredibly seriously. He's absolutely a workaholic. He'll work 18 hours a day, and he expects the people who he employs as his assistant coaches to do the same. In the book, I've spoken to quite a few of them, and some of them say it's the greatest experience of their lives, and others say it's absolutely the worst, and they'd never even consider doing it again. But that's what he expects. That's what he does himself. I think he's got that Japanese work ethic, but he's also he just loves his sport, and he's prepared to do anything to win. And I mean, if you get along with him and get on board with him as an assistant coach or a player, you're going to have to work, and it's going to be tough. But as you can see now with the England side, and the only people who stay the distance with Eddie are the tough ones, and by the end they're disciples. And so it either works or it doesn't, and if it doesn't work, you're not going to be there at the end. And these guys who are there with him now and 2 games away from the biggest prize in world rugby obviously have drunk the Kool-Aid, and they're having a great time.
Obviously, big game coming up for Eddie Jones. Given how competitive he is, he is a winner, isn't he? I mean, if we were to lose to New Zealand, would he view this World Cup as a failure, the last 4 years as a failure?
That's an interesting question. I don't think he'd see it as a failure, but I think he'd just move on and he'd write it off and say, well, I didn't do what I wanted to do, but boy, didn't we have a bit of fun and win some games along the way. I mean, there's been ups and downs. I don't think obviously he's not contemplating losing. He was in this position in 2003 when he took Australia to the semi-final of the World Cup against the All Blacks. And the All Blacks were much bigger favourites then for that game than they are for Saturday's game. And Australia beat them 22-10. So he's been there before. And as he said a couple of days ago, he said, we've been working towards this game for 2.5 years. Now, that's similar to what he said after Japan beat South Africa 4 years ago in the World Cup, that was their ultimate goal. Everything else along the way was just preparing them to play South Africa. And I think if Eddie was being honest, he'd say that everything along the last 4 years has been preparing England to beat New Zealand on Saturday and then to win the World Cup. So, in a way, yeah, it would be a failure, but I don't think it'd be a failure that he would carry with him. Although, in saying that, he never got over the fact that England beat Australia in the 2003 World Cup, and he always said that the silver medal that he won then really didn't mean much. He wanted a gold one, and he got a gold one with South Africa, but as an assistant coach, I think to win a gold medal in this World Cup would be the ultimate redemption for him from 2003.
Do you know what he's like just immediately before a game? So like kind of when they're in the dressing rooms and they're getting ready and, you know, the warm-ups are all over with. Like, I'm quite keen to get an impression of what he's like there just before the teams kind of walk out onto the pitch and they have to do the talking, you know?
Well, it's interesting, Patrick, that you say that where they have to do the talking, because that's a big part of his MO is getting the players to think for themselves. And when he came in and took over Japan, that was what he found, that Japan was a side that they didn't think for themselves. They took instructions from the coach. They went out, and if things went wrong, they had no plan B. So he did things to change that, such as trying to trick the players into thinking for themselves. They'd call meetings and say, you've got to be in the meeting room at such and such a time to meet the coaches and talk about this. And then the coaches wouldn't show up, and they'd have secret cameras recording what the players did and who took charge and how they dealt with that. And then when he came to England, he felt they were exactly the same. They were a side that couldn't think for themselves. They just waited to get instructions from the coaches. So they do things like say, you've got to be ready at the hotel, 9:30 in the morning, the buses will be arriving and taking you to Twickenham or whatever. And then they'd never book the buses. So they'd wait, and they'd go to Twickenham and wait and see how the players got there, how they solved that problem. So this is all part of a process that he says his aim is eventually to become redundant and the players think for themselves. So I think in the dressing room before a game, I mean, it'll be all business. No one plans a game the way Eddie does. No one gives as much information to the players as Eddie does. But then once they walk through the gates and they're onto the field, then he doesn't want them thinking about him. He doesn't want them thinking, what does Eddie want us to do? He wants it to be a natural process for them to do their thinking for themselves. And I think you've seen that with the way that Owen Farrell leads the team. I mean, he's a real leader who makes decisions on the run and makes decisions for the team, and the team are then able to change tack if they need, change direction if they need, go from defence to attack. I mean, we saw it very clearly against Australia. Australia were criticised as a side that were totally attack. They had no idea what to do if their attack wasn't working. And the English players, with a very much a paucity of ball, defended. But when they got that ball, they were able to switch from defence to attack brilliantly and turn the game around. So I think with Eddie, it's a two-part thing. There's his coaching, but he wants the players to have ownership of their game.
And obviously, you look, one of the big things about Eddie Jones, we touched on it about his press conferences. They're always a lot of fun. You must have heard some brilliant stories from him, analogies that he's given. Are there any that stand out?
Oh boy, you put me on the spot. But I've in the book I worked out that he has a process of how he does things in the press conferences. He does things like he turns it back onto the reporters. He'll say things like, "Well, what would you do? You know, you're being critical of me, but what would you do? Do you want me to do that? What do you want me to do?" The other thing is a sort of a name and shame. He likes to ask reporters. He says, "Well, what's your name, mate? What, Bill? Well, let me ask you, Bill. What would you do?" So it's all this. It's theatre and it's interaction more than any other coach I've ever seen in any sport. That I mean, I know when I was covering Wallaby games and Wallaby training, I mean, there would be this sense of excitement waiting for him to walk into the room because you knew something was going to happen. I just thought of one little thing. I mean, he's quick-witted. He wears a a sort of a bangle, a bracelet around his wrist. And during the 2003 World Cup, I said, I asked him, I said, what's that thing you wear around your wrist, Eddie? And he said, it was given to me by someone in Japan. It's to bring good luck. And I said, is it working? And he said, ask me after the World Cup. You know, just very, very quick retort. I've just another one that was quite funny. It was when he was. There was quite a bit of controversy about him saying that the Irish 5'8" had problems.
Yes.
Johnny Sexton had problems with concussion. And then there was this toing and froing with the press about, well, are you going to target him? And he said, well, obviously, you know, if you think that someone might be a weak link, you're going to run at them. And it just went on and on and on. It was getting quite heated. And then Eddie spotted the smallest person in the room and said, what's your name, mate? And the guy told him his name, and he said, well, obviously. And then he pointed to this huge ex-England player who's now a reporter. I can't remember his name. He said, well, obviously, if Bill, who's got the ball, he's going to run at you, isn't he? He's not going to run at this bloke over here. So he drags them in, and people are laughing, and he turns the whole thing around. It takes it off him and back onto the other people who are asking questions. And that, I mean, I find it's obviously a device, but I just find it so entertaining and so out of the ordinary. And that's why, I mean, at one stage I remember Eddie was saying, he was being questioned quite heavily, and he said, listen, guys, you know you're going to get, I know what you want. You know what you want. You want to get rid of me, and it's going to happen. Eventually you're going to get rid of me, and you're all going to be happy, aren't you? And I couldn't believe that none of the English reporters didn't jump up and say, no, Eddie, the last thing we want is for you to leave. You're the best thing that's ever happened to us. I mean, have you ever seen so many stories about a coach?
Well, this is
I mean, usually the stories about players and about referees and all. With Eddie, it's just all about Eddie. When Dylan Hartley was the England captain, I remember at one point there was a press conference after a game, and every question went to Eddie, and Dylan Hartley just sat there mute beside him for the whole time. And then as they got up afterwards, you could just hear through the microphone Dylan Hartley saying, we should have gone to the bloody pub.
Well, I actually had an interview this morning with Eddie Jones doing exactly that. Just keeps putting it back on the reporters. It's so, I suppose it is so rare, like you touched on. Mike, really appreciate you coming on this morning. Some great stories there about Eddie Jones. Mike Coleman, author of Eddie Jones, Rugby Maverick. We're going to be talking to Harry Ellis, former England scrum half, next.
Love Sport. The Novotel London Blackfriars, the official hotel partner of Love Sport. Located just minutes away from the city and London's famous South Bank. You can kick back and taste the flavours of the world at the Jamboree Bar and Grill and enjoy all the sights of London in style. The Novotel London Blackfriars.
You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah? Really? It's just, there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it, sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
It's cancer, they said. My first thought, let's just say it wasn't money, but time off work for treatment and trips to the hospital, paying the mortgage, and the cost of living doesn't go away just because you're living with cancer, and Macmillan can help with that too. My advice? Take their advice. Soon as. I did.
Macmillan, right there with you. Search Macmillan Money Worries.
Hi, my name's Bob. I'm a retired civil servant from Durham. I used the advice that a spokesman said gave me to haggle with Sky to reduce my monthly payments from £86 per month to £43 per month, which was a saving of £774 over the 18-month contract. A nice little result, if I say so myself, but it was only due to a spokesman said on his brilliant advice that I was able to do a deal for the new contract.
With a spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
Digital radio offers great sound quality and more stations than ever before. And we want to make sure that you get Love Sport on your digital radio. Just press the auto tune or auto scan button and Love Sport will appear on your menu. Love Sport on digital radio. This is Love Sport.
That's for breakfast. Me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys here with you until 10. Of course, we are talking a lot of rugby because it's a big weekend ahead in the Rugby World Cup. England taking on New Zealand. Delighted to say we've got Harry Ellis, former England scrum half, on the line to go through it with us. Morning, Harry.
Morning. How you doing? All right?
Yeah, we're good. We're excited. I'm sure you are too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, really looking forward to this. I think it's all it's the pinnacle of England's kind of career in terms of playing since the last time they got to a semi-final. So it's a massive game for them, big expectation. But yeah, looking forward to watching it.
Yeah, and obviously one of the big talking points is that there's a Ford and Farrell combo going on. Do you see that working out?
Yeah, I think they've proved in the past they've been able to work that kind of 10-12 axis really well. It's really interesting to see how Eddie's gone with Ben Youngs and Ford as well. They play really well together at Leicester, and there's obviously seen that as an important axis to get into the game. I think similarly, New Zealand's 9-10 combination have worked really well, so I think Eddie's looking at that combination for England to try and counteract theirs.
So we have this eternal debate, right, on the haka. Now, I love it because I just think it always kind of brings this weird mixture of emotions right to the surface, and that's cool. But at the same time, your opponent just gets to do a war dance like you immediately before the start of a game. Where do you stand on it?
I normally stand about 20 yards away watching it. No, I think from me, from somebody who was fortunate to have faced it, it's a massive motivational tool, a massive event. That's something as a young person growing up watching it, you think it's just unbelievably motivating. I think to be an Englishman to face it, let alone somebody who's performing it, it's just special. It's something that I mean, I'm a teacher at Leicester Grammar School, head of rugby coaching, and all the kids are doing the haka, and I think it's great for the game. It's great for boosting that popularity of the sport, and yeah, I love seeing it.
John, I want to talk about that actually. The fact that you're a teacher, the kids at the school must ask you so many questions. I mean, at the moment,
I imagine it's a lot like this actually.
Yeah, just constantly. No one doing any rugby in games. They're just asking you questions all the time. That must happen.
No, it's not normally like this, honestly. Yeah, we are a rugby playing school, and we have a very diverse background of child, and the kids absolutely love the rugby, especially this time of year. In 2015, we had Leicester Grammar was the base for Canada rugby, and all the kids were following Canada, and they were really getting to meet the players and loving it. And yeah, it's great to see. I mean, at the school we'll be putting the TV on with the games on, and it's absolutely brilliant. The kids really buy into it.
Okay, you're making me consider, if I do have children, moving to Leicester now.
Well, you could come here.
It's a great advert for the school.
That's so good. I can remember when there was that famous Ashes series on home soil, and then there was also the World Cup when England got knocked out by Brazil in the World Cup football a while back. My school was just so bar humbug about the whole thing. Oh, no, we're not going to watch that. No. I wish I hadn't actually when it came to the Brazil game, to be fair. But yeah, anyway. But, okay, so where is this game going to be won and lost, do you reckon?
Well, I mean, it's difficult to say. There's so many matchups over the field, over the two teams. For me, obviously being an ex-scrum half, watching Ben Youngs against Aaron Smith, they're both at their peaks of their careers, in my opinion, both playing really, really well. It's whoever can have that control on the game. For Ben Youngs, his box kicking has been absolutely brilliant. Maybe a little bit of a dip in performance in the last game. Aaron Smith controls the game. The speed of breakdown is absolutely vital for getting good go forward. I was so impressed with watching the defensive line speed of England in the last game against Australia. They had that white wall consistently across the park. It's just going to be a massive game, a big physical game. I love all the stuff off the field, all the gamesmanship that's going on, just to try and add that little bit of spice to it. But it's just going to be an epic game, I think.
Well, I want to touch on that. You mentioned the stuff that's going on off the field. Of course, Eddie Jones, he loves a little mind game from time to time, drops in that he thinks his training is being filmed, Spygate. What's your thoughts on, first let's start, your thoughts on Eddie Jones at the moment? Obviously, the public are very much behind him. He's always a lot of fun in the press conferences, isn't he?
Yeah, I was listening to your interview earlier, and they were saying that it's very much about him, about as a personality. I think he's absolutely great bloke. He's been great for England, for English rugby, and I think he's very clever at kind of deflecting the heat on the players. So he will mention other things just to try and relieve the pressure on the lads.
Yeah.
The last thing a player wants to do is concentrate about things that are going on off the field. Interviews, this type of thing, controversy. They just want to concentrate on training and preparing for the game. So he's very good at protecting the players, taking the heat, taking the sting out of the game, and it just makes me smile, the gamesmanship that goes on in the papers. But I think it's all part of the game these days.
Yeah, it is. And it's like he just goes fishing, and they always chomp on what he says. I bet he just can't even believe how easy it is for him. He's just like, right, I'm going to lob this particular grenade into a room. It's gone off. Right,
Absolutely.
Everyone's gone for it. Excellent.
Yeah.
I just want to get your take on, right, so you're in the dressing room before the game. What, in your experience, how did that normally go down? Like, so were there people kind of ranting and raving at each other? Were there any kind of inspirational figures? How would you personally maybe go about this particular match?
I just try and concentrate on my own game, trying to have that bit of calm time before the storm, as it was in the game. I was very fortunate that we had quite a few leaders in the team: Martin Johnson, Johnny Wilkinson, Mike Tyndall, who did most of the talking. For me personally, I like to try and stay quite calm, try and concentrate on what I have to do. For a scrum half, there's a lot of information coming outside and in all the time. So you need to make sure that your strategies are all up to date and everything. You know what you're doing. A lot of the forwards used to just bang their heads together against a brick wall most of the time, and let's face it, most of the forwards just bend down and push most of the time, so they don't have a lot to worry about. But yeah, I think the emotion comes as soon as you step out. Well, when I played at Twickenham anyway, that the energy of the being in the arena adds that motivation, and it was really interesting listening to Eddie Jones saying he wants the fans on the TV to be shouting at the TV and sending that energy across. It's going to be absolutely amazing, and I'm really envious of the supporters who are out there watching it live.
In terms of tactically, I wanted to get your thoughts on this. Obviously, England's kicking game dominated Australia by gaining territory, letting them play from deep. Do you think it'll be similar tactics against New Zealand?
I think it will, actually, by having Ford at 10 and Farrell at 12, that kicking game. So they've got two options. They can pass the ball from 10 to 12 and kick, or straight from 10 kicking, or Ben Young's box kicking. Everything is just going to have to be absolutely perfect in terms of kicking to compete or getting the ball off the field and restarting. Having that, some good line-out calls. It's just going to be it's going to be that fine margin. I can see one mistake leading to a try, one yellow card, one missed tackle. So we have to be absolutely on the money in everything that we do. And I think the kicking game is really, really vital for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just kind of a couple of powerhouses. I think Eddie Jones said yesterday, didn't he? It's two heavyweights, one dressed in black and one dressed in white, going toe to toe, and that is what is going to be so great for this game. Look, just give us your honest prediction here. Do you reckon? Do you reckon we can do this?
I do. If we'd have not performed against Australia and still won, I would have gone New Zealand. But the way that we performed, the way that we turned the screw in that Australia game, the way that we had that big defensive performance, I think if any time in the next 20 years we're going to beat New Zealand, it's going to be tomorrow morning.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's good. Yes! One more question, actually. So on the threat of Barrett, also his opposite number, Elliot Daly, dealing with the high ball. How do we deal with the threat of Barrett?
He's one of the best in the world. You've just got to close him down, try and reduce his time on the ball. This is where, when we do kick the ball to him, we need that really good line chase. If we're giving him space between our line chase and him catching the ball, i.e. 10, 20 metres, we're going to get carved up. So we need to make sure that the kicks are to compete, and that line chase. That's just one facet of the game. He's a magician elsewhere. So we just make sure our tackle technique is really good and the communication in our defensive line works. But we can't just concentrate on one player. They've got 14 others that are big, good players.
And how are, dare I ask, how are your school side getting on at the minute? Are they doing all right?
Yeah, Leicester Grammar School first team. Yeah, we're doing really well. We're in a national cup competition at the minute. We're doing really well. It's really nice that, as I mentioned, we're a very diverse community here. We just love our rugby. We love our sport. So yeah, we're doing really, really well, and the kids are enjoying the sport, which is the main thing, I think.
Fantastic. Great stuff. Harry, appreciate you joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you.
That's Harry Liss, former England scrum half.
You know what I will say, right, about a lot of the rugby lot, right? So they used to, we had Phil Vickery on yesterday, obviously, World Cup winner, you know. All these kind of people, how absolutely normal they are.
Humble.
Yeah.
Is what
How just completely and utterly normal they are. With a lot of the footballers that we get on, you can tell that the hamster running round in the wheel that pulls the levers that are in their brain is currently thinking about doing something like drink driving. Whereas with that lot, they're all right.
It's quite a generalisation.
But crucially, the rugby lot are all right, and that's what I want you to take away from that.
You maybe forget that I played football.
Well,
for quite a long period of time.
Played a bit of football.
Wow. Let's hear from Eddie Jones.
I think we've been eating plenty. We had some nice Miyazaki beef down in Miyazaki. Boys have had some nice sushi here. We're ready for the game. You know, as I said at the previous, we've had 2.5 years to prepare for this game, so we're ready to go. And it's going to be a great contest, isn't it? Two heavyweights, one dressed in black, one dressed in white. You couldn't think of a better scenario.
I know you enjoyed that interview there. An interview you've given.
Unlimited chocolate fountain at Cadbury's World.
What?
It's better scenario.
Than what? Than sushi?
Nut. Yeah. The triple pounder burger.
You're literally salivating as we're talking now.
Gosh.
Do you know what? We're going to need to get you a cloth. Producer Kieran will sort that during this small interview. We're going to be speaking to Rye Hooper, Wolves fancast.
57 pints of beer.
7:15.
Giving your team a voice. Love Sport Radio.
Digital radio offers great sound quality and more stations than ever before. And we want to make sure that you get Love Sport on your digital radio. Just press the auto tune or auto scan button and Love Sport will appear on your menu. Love Sport on digital radio.
You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah? Really? It's just, there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it, sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
Stop paying too much for your energy bills. Brian saved money on his at a spokesmansaid.com. Can you?
I'm Brian from Swaddling Coat, South Derbyshire, and I saved about £400 on my energy bill with a Spokesman Said. The iSpokesman Said website was very easy to use, and the money I saved I put towards a holiday.
Compare home energy quotes from the UK's biggest suppliers in just a matter of minutes with a spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October. Find out what you need to do to prepare at gov.uk/Brexit.
Premier League, Championship and fan shows. 7 days a week. We've got your team covered. Love Sport. Listen to Love Sport Radio on your smartphone today. Simply download the free Love Sport app from the App Store or Google Play. Tap the play button and you'll be able to listen to your favourite station. Anytime, anywhere. Love Sport Radio, the station giving fans a voice. This is Love Sport.
Love Sport Breakfast. Me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys here with you until 10 a.m. Now, we spoke plenty of rugby. Really interesting interview there with Mike Coleman and Harry Ellis, former England scrum half. We're going to move back to football now because it was a successful night in the Europa League for our British teams. One team in particular had a very good win. Wolves away at Bratislava. Delighted to say we've got Rye Hooper from Wolves Fancast on the line to go through it with us. Morning, Rye.
Hi, good morning. How you doing?
Good, thanks. Good. I mean, look, first and foremost, good win, but this was a really interesting game for several reasons. Played behind closed doors, I believe.
Yeah, in front of a sellout crowd. It was...
a sellout crowd of kids.
Madness. Yeah. So the sort of context for it, for anyone listening who perhaps doesn't know, Bratislava were charged with homophobic and anti-Semitic behaviour from their set of their supporters. So their punishment was a couple of games behind closed doors, one of which was last night's game, but there was a bit of a loophole whereby to get away from that, as long as you were a local school child under 14 and was supervised, I think each 10 kids by an adult, then you get to go to the game. So a bizarre atmosphere, and Wolves, who have no blame in the situation, from a Wolves fan's perspective, we were banned, and then at the last minute we were kindly, and I say that sarcastically, given 200 tickets, which were VIP tickets, for £55. So it was free entry for all the Bratislava local kids, and lovely for them. But as Wolves fans, who had obviously planned the trip and organised the trip, we had to go, for those who were lucky enough to get a ticket, and pay 55 quid, and were told not to wear any colours and not to celebrate. So bizarre, but so even better that we've won, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the whole thing seems completely ludicrous. How can you not wear your team's colours, and how can you not celebrate when a goal goes in? I mean, I physically can't stop myself celebrating when Manchester United score, although Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has been doing his best to make sure that I don't have to recently. So so there we go. But okay, let's just talk about the actual game itself. You did go 1-0 down quite early on after about 10 minutes.
Yeah, we did. To be honest, it's kind of been a theme this season, really. We've not had many good first half performances. I don't know what that is really, but we didn't start well. There wasn't a lot in the game first half, and defensively it was a poor goal to concede. So we're certainly poor first half, but then second half he made changes, and really we had the players who I think the fans wanted to see on the pitch, and in that Traore, who we know can make such an impact. Jota came on. Gibbs White, who's been suffering really recently with form, came off. So the team that ended it was more the team, I think, if you speak to the majority of fans, we want to see. And then we got back in the game, and really we were in control for the second half.
Just to make a point as well, Bratislava had not lost a home game since April 2018. So this certainly wasn't an easy place to go.
No, absolutely. I think, they've had a good record. They've beat, I believe, Besiktas in the group already. And obviously they've qualified to the group stages as well. So we knew it would be a tough game. So, no, I think, absolutely, if you compare the leagues, there's no comparison, is there? But as a home side in Europe, and with the congestion of games that we've got, then I don't think it was one we would have taken for granted. So, delighted, really. That's, I think, last six games unbeaten in all competitions. So, the narrative has been how we're going to cope with this, increased number of games, but we're coping all right, really. So, that's Torino, Besiktas, and prior to the group stages, that's, I think, 5 or 6 away wins in Europe. So, no, fantastic, and puts us in a good position in the group.
Indeed. And a quick word on your goalkeeper, because I know several of the papers had him as man of the match, made a very good one-handed save to keep, to ensure victory. Just a quick word on him, because we haven't actually spoke about him for a long period of time on the show, Rui Patricio, but I mean, he's established himself there as number one. The impression I get is that he's really well liked by the Wolves fans.
He is, yeah. I mean, obviously you'll know sort of the technical side of keepers more perhaps than myself, but from a fan perspective, he's been fantastic. I think he was a real good signing, and probably one that came under the radar a little, because I guess there was a lot of talk when he came in at a similar time. We had obviously the likes of Neves that came in, and Jota, and attacking flair players. But Patricio's fantastic. He's a very, very good keeper. He's a leader. He's obviously a Portugal international. He's played in European Championship, World Cups, and for me, he's one of the best keepers in the Premier League. So it was a real sort of coup that we signed him from Sporting at the time, and he's been fantastic for us this season. The defence at times hasn't quite been where I think we want it to be, but he's marshalled it well, and he made some important saves again last night.
And a quick word on Saiz, of course, got the equaliser yesterday. One of the more underrated midfielders.
Yeah, I think so. I think so as well, because he's more one of those sort of industrial midfielders, really. So he won't score a goal like a Neves, or is perhaps not technically as great as Moutinho. So he does get overlooked, but he's been excellent. He's been with us a few years now. He came in under Walter Zenga, so that tells you how long he's been with us. But he's kept faith with him, and when perhaps the form of the other players hasn't quite been there, and I mentioned Gibbs White earlier, who's struggled recently. So, No, he's been excellent. He can play centre half and centre midfield as well. So hopefully he'll get a decent run in the league as well.
And obviously looking at the group now in the qualifying spots, a really tough group though, obviously with Bratislava, Besiktas, who've got no points amazingly, and Braga as well. Do you think that Wolves will qualify, and how far can they go?
Yeah, I think we will. I think realistically, I think the other teams can end up maybe on 10 points. So I think we need perhaps 4 points now. So I think we'll be in a good position, particularly when we've got a couple of games coming up at home. So I think we can qualify. In terms of how far we can go, we can go as far as possible. Semis at the least is, and that's not being arrogant. I just think they've shown this season with the wins that they've had so far. I accept that. We'll be looking at the sides perhaps dropping out of the Champions League, and so the competition will be tougher. But these are players that have played at this level. We've got players within the team who've played in this competition before, played in the Champions League as well. So, I'll be confident that we can go far in the competition.
Great. And lastly, of course, Newcastle away at the weekend. I guess one of the issues when you're playing in the Europa League is then you're back down to earth to an extent, where, of course, they will be going up to Newcastle. A game that they can win, but Newcastle not the easiest team to beat, certainly. How do you see that one playing out?
Yeah, it's going to be a difficult game. I think, there's always a little bit of apprehension after the Europa games. But then I say that, and then, recently we went to Besiktas and won, and then we played Man City and won. So, certainly I'd be expecting us to get a good result against Newcastle. So, yeah, I would fancy us against Newcastle at this moment in time, certainly.
Fantastic. Right, as always, absolute pleasure.
No problem. Cheers, guys.
Ryan Hooper there, Wolves fancast, giving us his thoughts on the victory yesterday for Wolves away at Bratislava, which, 20,000 people there, all children.
Yeah, it was a more annoying atmosphere than the Vuvuzela, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Because remember, it was replaced with like...
That was dreadful, wasn't it?
And it's just, both of them are just horrendous noises to hear, aren't they?
And we're just now pumping it out there at 7:55 in the morning.
Yeah.
I mean, we're so lucky, our listeners.
Oh, it's horrendous.
Yeah, I'm so glad you
No,
actually...
but it's true though, isn't it? It's like, can't we just do it right?
I'll tell you what it is when you go to... There's other games that you get that, where the atmosphere... You go to a game and you almost expect to feel and hear a certain type of noise when you go to a game, which a lot of the time will be that murmuring... Yeah, and then every now and then you'll get a chant or two, depending on where you go. You go to St James's Park, that'll be bigger and more often, whereas maybe some of the other clubs, Watford was always quite quiet, if I'm honest, and then every now and then you'll get a chant. But you kind of have a feeling as to what to...
last night, goodness me. Did Pepe score? Did he? Honestly, he didn't celebrate. Emery didn't celebrate. The Arsenal fans... Yeah.
Is it that bad?
Oh. I just watched it on the telly.
Wait to see. Okay, no, true. Well, we're going to be talking actually about the Arsenal game in more detail in the next hour.
I must say, the atmosphere at the Etihad as well is good, because if you stand on one side of the ground and sing Blue Moon, it reverberates off all the empty seats at the other end of the ground. So it just gets a nice echo to it,
Indeed. Let's talk a little bit on Pepe, actually. Robin Van Persie had this to say on Pepe.
I don't really like to talk about the price tag, and because it's a pumped up market anyway nowadays, So if he's 5 million or 70 million, I don't really mind that. And it's just every player needs that confidence boost. And he just got it, and I'm really pleased for him.
Super funky party time, you guys. Let's do this. We've got to Amsterdam.
It's a conversation to be had, isn't it?
It is, really, yeah.
Yeah, so Pepe...
It's a fine line between me and Sean Connery. It's a very fine line.
These impressions are getting worse, by the way. Both of us. Really, really bad now.
And now it's time for Nelson Mandela.
No. Let's talk Pepe. Right. Pepe... a good night for him. Hasn't arguably been the best. Do you know what? It's so difficult sometimes. It's so difficult. What I'll say is the first goal, Pepe, yesterday, I do think the keeper could do better. I think the second goal was a fantastic free kick. What were your thoughts on Pepe last night? Not just the goals.
Yeah, I thought he proved his doubters wrong, Rich. I thought that anyone who said that he wasn't really worth his grain of salt was an absolute mug.
Yeah, that was
No,
me.
2 good free kicks. It was the mentality that really kicked on. The 90th minute, 3-kick, winner. That is class.
There you go. 3 minutes to 8.
Love sport.
This is Ian Stone. I'm here on Love Sport Radio every Saturday afternoon from 12 till 3. My father said I could have been a professional footballer. My father was a big fan of mine. I was 21 years old and I was playing for a team. My father was the manager and made me Player of the Year.
Oh.
He walked into the dressing room and he went, Player of the Year. This year, well, I think it's Ian. Ian Stone every Saturday afternoon, 12 till 3.
Love Sport.
Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October. This means that travelling to the EU will change. You'll need to check online if your passport is valid for travel to Europe. If you're planning on driving, you'll need to check if you have the right documents to drive. And make sure your travel insurance covers all your healthcare needs. To keep your trip on track, check what you need to do at gov.uk/Brexit. Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October.
Can you save money on your car insurance? Chris did with a little help from a spokesmansaid.com. Getting real people, real savings.
I'm Chris from Leicestershire, a truck driver. I went on a spokesman said, which was very straightforward and easy to use for an old git like myself, and saved over £300 on my car insurance.
Find quotes from over 100 leading insurance providers at a spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
Join me, you and Thomas and the Posh Boys here on Love Sport Drive this Friday as we count down to the Rugby World Cup semi-finals. All the build-up to England versus New Zealand and a massive weekend of football, all on Love Sport.
Love Sport.
Love Sport Breakfast. Me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys here with you until 10 a.m. Lots to come in the next hour. Of course, we're going to be talking a lot of rugby. Kieran Wellington is going to come into the studio and discuss this with us as well. England taking on New Zealand. For those who didn't hear it, you can listen back. So we had a couple of brilliant guests in the last hour. Harry Ellis, former England scrum half. We also spoke to Mike Coleman, author of Eddie Jones' Rugby Maverick 2. We're going to be speaking to Simon Collins, sports reporter for the Evening Standard this hour as well. Of course, Arsenal beat Vitoria yesterday. A brace from Pepe, 2 very good free kicks. So we'll get his thoughts on that game. As always, you can get in touch, 0208 70 20 558 on the WhatsApp. We are on YouTube. Just simply type in Love Sport Breakfast or at Love Sport Radio on the socials.
On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker. This is Love Sport News.
From the Sky News Centre at 8, the Prime Minister has challenged MPs to support a general election on the 12th of December if the EU grants a 3-month extension to Brexit. A decision could come from Brussels today. If Parliament backs Boris Johnson's plan on Monday, he'll allow more time to scrutinise his Brexit deal. The SNP's Angus MacNeil explains why his party won't support an election.
We'll have a general election in our terms. We know we're going to win in Scotland and we'll win more in Scotland. But if we have Boris Johnson out of a cage, who has power in that moment? Boris Johnson will have power. At the moment, Boris Johnson's at the mercy of Parliament at a very dangerous juncture, and I would not trust Boris Johnson.
Police have started moving the bodies of 39 Chinese nationals who were found dead in a lorry trailer in Essex on Wednesday. 11 of the victims have been taken by private ambulance to a hospital for tests. Some women are being forced to turn to sex work because of the 5-week delay to universal credit payments. An inquiry's found the wait is often the final straw for many women. Laura Seabohm from the Changing Lives charity says claimants' problems have been made much worse.
We know that selling sex is really linked to poverty, and what we have seen with the onset of universal credit is that the number of women we support are increasingly coming to us in much more severe hardship.
Hundreds of people have climbed Australia's famous Uluru before it closes to tourists. The landmark is sacred to local Aborigines who believe scaling it will bring bad luck. The 75th anniversary of VE Day will be marked with extended pub opening hours. The government's announced clubs and bars will also be able to stay open until 1 a.m. on the 8th and 9th of May next year. And it was a successful night in the Europa League for the British clubs. There were wins for Arsenal, Manchester United, Wolves and Celtic. Rangers drew 1-1 to Porto. That's the latest. I'm Kat Suave.
This is Love Sport.
Welcome back, Mr. Jones. How was your Touareg 48-hour test drive? Mr. Jones, I said, how was the test drive?
Fantastic, thank you.
What did you make of the Touareg's touchscreen Innovision cockpit?
Brilliant.
And the climate control massage seats?
Oh, marvellous.
How about the night vision camera?
Absolutely exceptional.
That's great. So, are you going to unlock the door?
No.
The Volkswagen Touareg 48-hour test drive. The hardest part will be giving it back.
Come on, Mr. Jones, open up.
Can't hear you.
Participating retailers only, subject to status, vehicle availability and retailer T&Cs. And 17th of December 2019.
Love Sport Radio. On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker. This is Love Sport Breakfast with Richard Lee and Patrick Christys.
Morning, Love Sport Breakfast, Love Sport Radio, me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys here with you until 10 a.m. to touch on the top stories this morning. Of course, the back pages are largely rugby orientated. Big games this weekend. England taking on New Zealand in the semi-final. Of course, Wales taking on South Africa. We're going to have Kieran Wellington in the studio in a minute to go through that. It was a good night in the Europa League for our British teams. Wins for Manchester United, a win for Arsenal, win for Wolves, win for Celtic as well, beating Lazio 2-1, and a good draw for Rangers as well away at Porto. Myself, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys here with you until 10 a.m. Let's hear from Eddie Jones on George Ford and New Zealand.
You know, whenever you play against New Zealand, your work off the ball is going to be massively important. You know, they like to move the ball around. They're very good on transition. And George's work rate off the ball is absolutely exceptional.
Indeed it is. We're going to be joined now by producer and rugby fanatic Kieran Wellington to give his thoughts on this weekend's line. Of course, we did speak, and if you missed it, you can listen back. We did speak in the last hour to a couple of very interesting guests. Harry Ellis, former England scrum half, and Mike Coleman, author of Eddie Jones' Rugby Maverick as well. Kieran?
Yes, it was quite interesting, wasn't it, Harry especially, obviously... being a former scrum half, like to give Ben Youngs a bit of praise, and obviously a lot has been made of the Ford-Farrell axis, but actually Ben Youngs, because no one's talked about him, it shows what a good World Cup he's had almost, and that our ball has been very quick in the breakdown, and our attacking play, we just look so fluid when we go forward, and we look threatening every time. So what was great about the Australia game, Eddie Jones knew exactly what tactics they were going to bring to the game, whereas they ran everything. Yeah. They didn't really kick, and we kicked for territory, got it into Australia's half, and said, "Come out our defensive line." And our defence needs to be so strong against New Zealand. You do see it being a less point scoring game. We score 40 points, obviously, against Australia. There's going to be one or two tries maybe in this match. It's going to be very tight.
Is it similar tactics that we use? Because it seemed like the Australia game, they didn't necessarily see, or they didn't necessarily deal with what was going on. They kept doing the same thing. It wasn't working particularly well.
Strange, really.
You'd feel that New Zealand have got a little bit more about them than that.
Yeah, they got a bit more nous, and Steve Hansen obviously knows Eddie Jones well from his time in Australia. So, it's going to be a really interesting one, that New Zealand are going to have a bit more dimension to their play than Australia did. And what will happen is that he'll come out and they'll have different kind of methods of play, whereas Australia didn't. So what's going to be really interesting is how our kicking game is going to be responded to. That's why, we wanted to ask Harry about Bowden Barrett, because the fly half will be so important to New Zealand's start of their attacks.
Of course, defensively, both teams very good. Do you think we'll see tries, or do you think this will be...
Yeah, well, as I said, I think there'll only be two tries in this match. I can really see it being a tight, because our defence is our strong point. So we're going to kick for territory. I think we will play slightly similar. We'll kick for territory. Our set piece is really important. Get a few line outs up the field. Try and force the error at the breakdown. Maro Itoje, obviously brilliant at the breakdown. Force a few penalties and get our points that way. But New Zealand haven't had the pressure on them. This is what's interesting. Obviously, they play South Africa in the first pool game and were very good. But I didn't feel South Africa quite warmed up. And it's always weird when you have two heavyweights going head-to-head in the first match of a World Cup. Now it's the semi-final. Everyone's heated up. Everyone's in form. It's going to be really interesting.
And, of course, if it's a draw at the end of 80 minutes, it turns into a fight to the death, doesn't it?
Not quite.
No.
We
really?
Yeah.
That's what it says here.
No, 2 periods of extra time.
And then if
10
it's still
minutes
a draw.
each.
And then if it's still a draw after that, it's a fight to the death.
Kick out.
A kick out?
Yeah, kick out.
How often does that? No, how often does that happen?
Oh, I've never seen it in my life.
No.
But how good would it be? Because the last time we played New Zealand, Cricket World Cup,
oh yeah,
super over. Ben Stokes sliding in there, punching the ball to the boundaries, as opposed to punching something else, and then now we could finally have this in the Rugby World Cup.
Bit of penalty kicks.
I like the whole synchronicity.
So would a prop have to take a kick conceivably?
Conceivably.
This is brilliant.
Incredible.
Why isn't this just rugby?
Yeah. We just do that.
Yeah, just do that.
Do it ananyway.
Well, that was what was so great about Kyle Sinclair's try against Australia. He made a clean break, and I was like,
yeah.
"Come on, Kyle."
He got described. This is the best thing I think I've described since Andy Carroll was described as a slightly elongated horse when he had his hair.
Yeah.
It says Carl Sinclair was described as running like a hippo with a smack bum. It's such easy. Little tail going around.
And it was when he scored the try, and he just like laid on the ball as his celebration. He was like,
It's brilliant. It was one of, but that is a great World Cup moment because you could just see as well. He'd weighed it up. He's got it, and he's got this little glint in his eye. Like, I know he's had a bit of issues with his aggression and stuff. I like that personally. Like, born in a council flat to a single parent family, worked his way. He's played for England at a World Cup. You see, he gets the ball and he's like, "I'm gonna do it. I'm doing it. Yeah, go on, lads. Go on, lads. Yes.
Oh, it is like something from a bad film, actually, where you've got the kid that's running for the. How many times have you seen someone like? And the amount of people that are chasing them, and yet
Like
with each scene they get further away.
That film about Shaolin monks playing football. What was that? What was that?
What is that?
It was horrendous.
What are you on about?
Oh, it was like a worse Mighty Ducks.
I mean,
Don't say about Mighty Ducks.
Oh yeah, you've got a weird
I
thing
love
about the Mighty Ducks.
Sorry, we're going on a massive tangent here. I don't know.
Or as Scott Campbell would say, a massive tandem.
How does every story seem to come back to the Mighty Ducks? We start talking rugby, we finish off at the Mighty Ducks.
Yeah.
Back to the rugby, Kieran.
Yeah, and obviously Wales-South Africa is the other semi-final.
Which is
on
a
Sunday.
really fascinating one.
Yeah, deeply. And, Wales they kind of haven't been at their best. But what's interesting, Liam Williams, who's been a key player for them at at fullback, is out for the rest of the tournament. And Lee Halfpenny has come in. And to have such an experienced guy as your replacement, with such kicking ability from the tee, it's going to be so interesting to see. Actually, Lee Halfpenny will that's a great replacement to have. So I think South Africa should be worried about Wales.
Yeah.
Like, I'd love to see. Wouldn't it be great if it was a Northern Hemisphere final? I know Phil Vickery mentioned it yesterday.
Yeah.
Because obviously England's still the only Northern Hemisphere team ever to win the World Cup.
Yeah, I like that. Although I think that Wales have been put at a massive disadvantage because Prince Charles rocked up to their training the other day, got a signed shirt. He was like, where's the plaque I need to unveil? Where's the plaque? No, there's no plaque, Prince Charles. We're just saying, wow, I only turn up for the plaque. I'm the greatest unveil. So I've been to 3 events hosted by Prince Charles, and he's made the same joke every single time. I'm the world's most experienced plaque unveiler. Oh God! So the rumor is that the Wales team are still fast asleep.
Right.
So actually, it's going to be difficult for them to get up to this game. You imagine?
So I know Matt Dawson predicted England-Wales final. He did that actually at the start of the World Cup, interestingly. However, even at this point, that's the least likely combination, isn't it? Fair to say? Because look, New Zealand are favourites, South Africa.
Well, you
favourites.
say that like based on history, I suppose yes, but
based on odds.
Well, yeah, but
based on who are the better teams.
Well, yeah, but Harry Ellis says there's no better time to beat New Zealand because they aren't as good as they have been in the last 8 years.
Yeah,
even though not a single one of their players has lost a World Cup match.
Yeah, but some of them are quite new, so they've only played like 4 games.
I mean, that's a good. Yeah.
So
I like the fact that can we spare a thought?
It's quite an imposing
in an England
stat,
in an England and Wales final. Can we spare a thought for all the people who have second homes in Wales from England who are going to have to evacuate en masse? It's going to look like Dunkirk.
Yeah, and they're going to have to like pretend to be Welsh, aren't they, as they evacuate? Bread of heaven, just running away. Like, bread.
Come on, Stephen, get in the car! Bread of heaven, sing on, come on now. Just show them the daffodil. Show them the daffodil. Good, they've let us out.
Like the worst apocalypse film ever.
Yeah.
In fact, there is a vote online, so I'm going to change. But the vote online as to what the final is likely to be.
England-Wales.
No, least likely. New Zealand, South Africa is favourite. England, South Africa is actually second favourite. New Zealand, Wales third.
Yeah,
most
I
likely.
just think Wales have been out of form, but Warren Gatland is such a good coach. Like how good he's been for the Lions in the last, 12 years.
Yeah.
I could just see Wales beating South Africa. I really could. We've got Alan Jones coming on later,
they were
so we can get his thoughts on it.
Look, I judge it entirely on the scale of the party if the team wins. Now, can anyone seriously look me in the eye and tell me that Cardiff is going to do it worse than anywhere else if they win? Come on, let's have it. I wouldn't even mind. That would be the saving grace. Because we won the Rugby World Cup and we sent all of our World Cup heroes to the Oval so a bunch of school kids can clap them. Oh, come off it. We don't deserve that. We don't deserve a World Cup if that's how we celebrate it. At least with the Welsh, they're going to absolutely have it for a period of days, aren't they?
They go nuts.
It would be a public holiday.
It'd be fantastic.
It'd be more than a period of days.
That's what it should be. It should be a period of... Do you remember that time we won the World Cup? No, I can't. Good. That's how you know you've celebrated a World Cup.
With Wales, the thing I do feel is that they weren't good in the last game against France. Most teams, when they go on and win a World Cup, this is a massive generalisation, I've got no fact behind this at all, but I'm going to say it anyway. Most teams that go on and win a World Cup or a major tournament have a spell during it where you question them. If you look at every...
Apart from New Zealand in rugby.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, just kind of killed my point. I'm thinking more so football.
Sorry.
I think pretty much every World Cup winner, there's a game during it at some point, you're like, I'm not so sure.
That's the thing with the Welsh. They have incredible bottle. Like, they just don't know when they're beaten.
No. Whereas England, I feel every game so far, they've been pretty impressive, let's be honest. In fact, very impressive. So have New Zealand to this point.
Well, I think this is going to be a semi-final for the ages, Rich. I don't think we can underplay how good a quality this match is going to be.
Yeah.
The defences are superb. And, it's going to be... It's just the tackles that are going to come in and the defensive lines and the different tactics, the kicking. It's going to be great.
Football cliche is that the first goal is important. In fact, here's a stat for you, that when a team scores first, they only lose that game 1 in 10 times on average. So that first goal is very important in a game of football. This game is the similarities, given how good they both are defensively. If there is to be a try, that first try, how key that'll be.
Yeah, it will be very key. Obviously, I'm expecting a fairly low-scoring game. So if you score a 7... if you score a converted try, you're going to be well in charge.
What I hope this isn't decided by is by like an early sending off for a very dubious high tackle, where these teams are so, because this is where that rule, like, I get it, by the way, like, you don't want to see anything unsafe because it could literally be deadly these days with the power and the pace of the game. So don't get me wrong, but you are going to be as pumped up as you've ever been, because for England this might as well be a final, because I think the team that wins this game will win the World Cup. Right, and so I think you want your players so unbelievably pumped up. There's no two ways about it. You can't have them any other way. And in that situation, it's so easy. 2 minutes into a game, 3 minutes into a game, the ball gets kicked up in the air. There's a high tackle, people running at pace, sending off. Bosh, the game's done. And you think, oh, come on, like hopefully a little bit of common sense prevails.
I'd have to agree. The time is 8:15.
Love sport.
You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah? Really? It's just, there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it.
Sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
It's cancer, they said. My first thought, let's just say it wasn't money, but time off work for treatment and trips to the hospital, paying the rent, and the cost of living doesn't go away just because you're living with cancer, and Macmillan can help with that too. My advice? Take their advice, soon as I did.
Macmillan, right there with you. Search Macmillan Money Worries.
Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October. Find out what you need to do to prepare at gov.uk/Brexit.
Hi, I'm Marilyn from Oxfordshire. My current insurance company quoted £245.08 to reinsure, and a spokesman said obtain me a price of £173.49 for the same cover. This was a fantastic saving for me. And next time my car insurance comes up for renewal, I will be going through a spokesman said. No doubt about that.
With a spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
Listen to Love Sport Radio on your smartphone today. Simply download the free Love Sport app from the App Store or Google Play. Tap the play button and you'll be able to listen to your favourite station. Anytime, anywhere. Love Sport Radio, the station giving fans a voice.
This is is Love Sport.
Lost for breakfast from me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys, here with you until 10 a.m. We're going to have a little look forward to this weekend's action in the Premier League. In fact, there is a game this evening. Southampton taking on Leicester at 8 o'clock this evening. We've been very impressed with Leicester, haven't we, this season?
Oh, massively so. Yeah, I rate them. I think Jamie Vardy's got better.
Do you think the fact that he's not involved with the England squad, he is getting those breaks, and I've seen this with other players, I'm asking the question, but I actually do believe this is the case, that when you get those breaks during the season, it's amazing, even just a few days here and there, the difference it can make mentally?
Yes, I think so. I mean, clearly he's been able to go to for a family holiday in, I think it was Dubai, wasn't it, which they had to cut short because ...
Yeah.
It's Rebecca Vardy's account.
Yeah.
So, there was that, which was magnificent, by the way. So, yeah, I think so. But I think he's just got... He's less overtly reliant on his pace to get him behind. I think he's more of a... He's scoring a wider array of goals now for me, Jamie
He's become
Vardy.
more intelligent?
I won't go that far, mate. I won't go that far.
No. Well, that game is tonight, Southampton-Leicester. Prediction?
Leicester. I think Leicester 2 or 3-0.
Well, there you go.
I rate them, man. I think Leicester are working absolute wonders. It is actually worth pointing out as well that it's a year anniversary since the chairman died in that horrific helicopter accident that happened, and that was, obviously a really sad day for football and a bit of a wake-up call for a lot of people as well, I think, in terms of put things into perspective. But I'm sure the Leicester players will want to go out and do him proud.
Yeah, here. The games tomorrow. There's some interesting games tomorrow. City taking on Villa, Brighton, Everton, Watford, Bournemouth, West Ham, Sheffield United, Burnley, Chelsea. I want to touch on Watford, Bournemouth, because Watford's still without a win. However, this is an opportunity, as well as Bournemouth have done this season. This is the kind of game for Watford. If they are going to get themselves out of it and they're going to start to build some momentum, it's these kind of games they need to win.
Yeah, it's just like unpopular opinion time, but I'm having a look at this league table at the minute, and I'm having a look at the way that teams are playing, and I'm looking at Watford, and I'm like, I think you might be in a bit of trouble.
I think they are.
Well, genuinely, I know it's early days, don't get me wrong, but I look at them and I think, actually, of the three bottom teams in this current Premier League, I think you might be one of them.
What I'd say is things haven't necessarily gone their way. I would say that's been a couple of games they should have beaten Arsenal. They were very, very good against Arsenal. Had a couple of these VAR decisions go against them, by the way.
True.
Newcastle in particular, which arguably cost them victory. Tottenham as well, which arguably cost them victory. I don't know. So you look at it and think, well, actually, look, another
Troy
day.
Deeney's been out.
They've had a few things. See, it could be 3 or 4 wins on the board now, and all of a sudden they're sat in 13th. We're not really making much of a deal of it. However, and this is what happened when we were in the Premier League back in 05, 06, I think it was, where it took us 10 games to get that win. Now, the problem is, when it takes you that long, the belief does start to drain away. And each game that goes against you, you start to feel maybe it's just not meant to be. And you start to, rather than focusing on the fact that you're playing reasonably well game in, game out, you start to focus on the fact that things aren't going your way, and you can soon change your mentality going into games. Because this is the type of game, is a really worrying one for me. Because if they don't win it, that's when I think that belief, that lack of belief really sets in.
Yeah, well, I think so. It's just going to be a question of mentality for them. I think there's no doubt that they've got the quality to get themselves out. And actually, in 3 weeks' time, we might not be talking about them in this way at all. And
this next little block of games, because there's obviously one more international break, you just feel that Watford, they need something to happen in this next little block. Because if that comes and goes and they haven't got a win by that point, then they'll be odds on for relegation as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, definitely. There was a story that broke yesterday. I just want your opinion on this, Reg, which is that the Football World Cup, Qatar, they are thinking, because we're going to have this winter break for the first time in the Premier League, they're thinking of actually playing Premier League games up to 9 days before the World Cup.
Yeah.
I mean, this surely is just nuts for anyone who wants quality at a tournament, isn't it?
Yeah. No, it is. I mean, logistically, I think everyone knows or knew it was going to be a nightmare. And it's one that you almost want to put to the back of your mind. I just worry it's not going to feel like a World Cup. That's the other part of it. The fact that it's being played when it is, the fact it's being played where it is. I don't know. You think of the excitement we've had towards every single World Cup, and I appreciate they're at different times of the day because they've been all over the world, but this one in particular really concerns me, that I just think it could be...
So I was thinking about this yesterday, and I think it's fair for us to all assume that this was not necessarily the most above-board selection process for a World Cup, right? I think that's anything particularly radical that I've said there. But I want to know what the exact price was, because I want to know what football sold its soul for. I don't really want to see anyone punished. I mean, it'd be nice, but I'm not bothered. I don't really want to see anyone go to prison or anything like that. I don't even really want to see anyone sacked. I just want to know what the price was, because you've decided there to put a World Cup in a country that's never hosted a major sporting event. It's a human rights black spot. It is an absolute abomination of a nation. And then you look at it and go, well, they haven't even got the transport links. They haven't even built the stadiums. Those stadiums are going to be built by slaves as well. You're going to have to disrupt the biggest league in the world for the first time in history in order to go out there. What did it cost? Because that's not a small amount of money. That's not even tens of millions, that's got to be hundreds of millions of quid.
I'm about to say, will it make you feel better if it was a high amount?
I want to know what football sold its soul for. I want to know how thick that brown envelope was. What was in that briefcase? Because that cannot have been a small amount of money. These are several major logistical issues that despite all of that, someone's gone, yes, give it to Qatar. How much money was it?
There you go. You've asked the question. Do you think we'll get an answer?
Never.
Absolutely not.
No.
Well, we know what you sell your soul for, because, of course, when people ask you to slip in certain words on the show, which you do regularly, soliloquy was one I think you dropped in quite nicely.
Yeah, I had to get potato into a show that I did with George Galloway on Russia Today over the weekend. Did it.
Did you? And you got your Mars bar that was promised?
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. Yeah. Doesn't cost a lot, does it, to get Patrick Christys to say whatever you want him to say. In fact, what do you want him to say? 0208 70 20 558. You have the Mars bar first and foremost, or do you do that upon...
I always demand payment up front.
Yeah. Fantastic. Back to a couple of the games this weekend. West Ham taking on Sheffield United. Again, a big game for West Ham, you feel, after last time out. A disappointment last time out against Everton. They do need to win that one, but Sheffield United look good.
I'd love to sit in on Sheffield United's training, because I reckon, that first couple of sessions where the manager's trying to explain to his players that exactly what he wants his centre-backs to do. It's like, all right, lads, bank of four, excellent, yeah, well done, good. Now, chaos! Good.
Do you know what? I'm seeing more centre-backs do this, by the way. All of a sudden, he's set a bit of a precedent. I'm seeing other teams that are starting to adopt the same philosophy. You watch, give it a year or two, this overlapping and underlapping centre-back will become just common.
Do you not think that David Luiz, in this respect, has been a revolutionary, and he's actually perfectly suited for Sheffield United?
Maybe.
Just a marauding sideshow Bob figure that
does whatever he wants.
Yeah. I've never seen that's the thing. There's a difference between, some Premier League footballers really stealing a living, or Ozil's not particularly trying. Can we just take a moment to appreciate that David Luiz has never once attempted to play the position his manager's told him to, and he's managed to have a long career at a string of top football clubs.
It's funny because you get the idea of the effective footballer isn't necessarily always the best looking footballer. I mean that in terms of how they play. No, I mean in terms of how they play. Like
Luke Chadwick.
Again, you're not really getting my point here. They're not always necessarily that pleasing on the eye.
Yeah. One Sebastian Veron.
Okay.
Hideous, wasn't he?
Right. But then you get the other type of footballer who looks fantastic, who's really pleasing on the eye, but isn't necessarily that effective.
Yeah.
David Luiz.
Yeah, he's one of those.
Yeah,
I get what you mean, but I think that's a skill in itself, because it takes a lot of effort to become a Premier League footballer. It takes a lot of effort to continue to be a Premier League footballer. But can you imagine the amount of effort it takes to do both of those things and relentlessly disappoint your manager every single week?
That's a fair point. Burnley taking on Chelsea as well tomorrow. There's a lot of games on Sunday, of course, because of the Europa League and TV, etc. So Newcastle Wolves, Arsenal Crystal Palace, Liverpool Spurs, great game that. Norwich City against Manchester United. Martin Dubravka, the goalkeeper at Newcastle, signed a 6-year deal, which is interesting for me given his age. Newcastle have got this kind of strategy whereby they do like to give out really long contracts.
Yeah.
They've done it for quite some time now, but he's 30 years old. So to give a 6-year contract to me seems a bit odd.
Yeah, I mean, so he'd probably be about 36 by the time he left that club.
I mean, give or take. Yeah, that's good maths. Quick, sharp.
Gosh. Quick maths.
Do you know what I mean? I just, by the way, I think
is it not just because actually he's played well? They think they might sell him, and they want to sell him for as much as possible, so they put him on a long contract to ramp up the price.
Yeah, I don't know if it works with a 30-year-old. This is the bit that confused. By the way, I like him, Dubravka. Very good.
Van der Sar, how old was he when he signed for United?
Okay, no, look, I'm not saying he can't go on to that, but it's quite a big risk. I don't know, if you're going to give us... It must be, and I don't know this for definite, it must be the oldest player to have ever been given a 6-year contract. It must be, because By the way, I think he's very, very good, and I can see why they've given him a long-term contract. And I guess from his point of view, he's probably looked at it and thought, well, I know I hold the cards at the moment. One of the best goalkeepers in the Premier League. Newcastle are desperate to keep him, and it might be that Newcastle don't necessarily go to the figures that obviously a David De Gea or someone will be on. He will be on good money without being ridiculous. So then the bit they'll have in his favour is saying, well, I'll tell you what, give me 6 years and I'll sign it. And you're right, it might be a case that they know they can sell him on, and maybe they sell him on and he signs a shorter term contract somewhere that's a little bit more lucrative. But no credit to Dubravka, 6-year deal for him.
Yeah, fantastic.
Cool. What's going on?
I'm just looking at Adele's astonishing weight loss.
Yeah, I wanted to touch on a few of the front pages, so talk to us about Adele.
Yeah, so, well, look, Adele has shed loads of weight, actually. She's rumoured to be seeing Skepta.
Okay.
Which is, I think, every ex-husband's worst nightmare.
Because?
Have you seen the video to All Over the House?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you're right.
I think that's about as bad as it gets, mate. To be honest with you, because we've all had it, haven't we? Where you turn up and your ex is with someone else. Maybe you are as well, and that always softens the blow. But it's like, oh, can I just introduce you to Henry? It's like, all right, mate. Hello, how are you? Oh, can I just introduce you to Skepta? Oh no! Oh, really? Oh.
Lovely to meet you.
Skepta.
Okay, I hear your point.
So that's that, really. She's lost a lot of weight. Yeah. So what else is going on in the news? Well, Boris Johnson is relentlessly asking for a general election. Also, on the front page of The Sun today, brave BBC man chases burglar in his pyjamas. BBC newsreader Hugh Edwards chased a burglar out of his home and into the street in his pyjamas.
Nice.
Yeah. But rumour has it actually he just started reading out the script for the next morning's BBC News, and the guy got so bored that he had to flee.
Okay. Do you still wear pyjamas, by the way?
I sleep naked.
Fantastic. 29 minutes past 8.
This is Love Sport. Are you paying too much for your car and home insurance? A spokesman said is the price comparison site that offers the best deals on the market for your energy and insurance. Go to aspokesmansaid.com and you could be reducing your bills in minutes.
With aspokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
Join me, you and Thomas and the Posh Boys here on Love Sport Drive this Friday as we count down to the Rugby World Cup semi-finals. All the build-up to England versus New Zealand and a massive weekend of football, all on Love Sport.
Love Sport.
You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah? Really? It's just, there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it.
Sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
It's cancer, they said. My first thought, let's just say it wasn't money, but time off work for treatment and trips to the hospital, paying the mortgage, and the cost of living doesn't go away just because you're living with cancer, and Macmillan can help with that too. My advice? Take their advice. Soon as. I did.
Macmillan. Right there with you. Search Macmillan Money Worries.
Aspokesmansaid.com is a leading price comparison website that allows you to compare every energy tariff on the market in seconds. We have more deals than any other comparison website offering energy prices, and our impartial independent switching service is free of charge. Nearly 50% of UK households have switched bills, and there are hundreds to be saved. Visit aspokesmansaid.com, as recommended in The Guardian, The Times and The Sun. aspokesmansaid.com.
Digital radio offers great sound quality and more stations than ever before. And we want to make sure that you get Love Sport on your digital radio. Just press the auto tune or auto scan button and Love Sport will appear on your menu. Love Sport on digital radio. Love Sport.
Is improving. And tonight, that's 2 goals. Is really important for us, the first, and second for him. He's continuing his process, the adaptation, and as soon as quickly is better for us.
That was Unai Emery there, of course. We're going to be talking a bit of Arsenal. They did win.
Sorry, just quickly. There's Spanish, and then there's Unai Emery. Isn't there?
Next level.
He is full throttle Spaniard. I love it.
He is indeed. Delighted to say we're going to be speaking about the game last night with Simon Collins, sports reporter for the Evening Standard, who is on the line now. Morning, Simon.
Morning, guys. How you doing?
Yeah, good, thanks. Now, can you talk about this game? Obviously, for a long period of time, didn't look like it was going to be a particularly good night. Then, of course, Pepe steps up, 2 free kicks, Arsenal 3, Vitoria 2. A good win in the end. How was the performance?
I think it's perhaps one of the worst Arsenal performances we've seen this season. In reality, I mean, the first half was so lacklustre, ponderous, poor in possession, and very, out of kilter for what Arsenal have been in the Europa League. I mean, Emery, in his press conference before, said, we need to recreate our Europa League performances in the Premier League. And in reality, they didn't deliver at all. And the fact they had to make 2 changes at half-time and they were left in the end for Nicolas Pepe to bail them out perhaps says it all against a Vitoria team who had injuries, were resting players for their game at the weekend. And they made very hard work of it, Arsenal.
Yeah, so I've stumbled into an Arsenal fans WhatsApp group, which as a United fan is a rather dangerous place to be, I must say. But I'm just going to read some of the message out from last night. Robbery. We're papering over the cracks. We're rubbish as a team. This, that and the other. This just seemed to be Unai out as well. There's another one. I thought that was probably a bit much. But that just seems to be the mood of the Arsenal fans at the minute. Are they being a little bit unfair? Is it that bad at Arsenal at the moment, do you think?
I mean, it's a difficult one. The mood sort of feels like it's teetering on the edge of there's a discontent among the Arsenal fans and they're sort of waiting for a result to justify the knives coming out and sticking them in. And, defeat last night would have definitely been that. We saw there was the odd banner in the crowd, admittedly, with a crayon and A4. It's perhaps not the most, imposing, but there was a few banners there. And I think the frustration with the fans is obviously the results. They've lost twice this season, so you can't have any grievances with that. But it's the manner of the performances. And again, last night we saw what we've seen this season, where they're just lacking, control in matches. You look at Manchester City, you look at Liverpool, even Chelsea to a degree are getting it. Those big teams, they control games, they dictate the tempo. And for Arsenal, it's like watching a basketball match where it's end to end. You don't really know who's going to be in possession, who's going to control the game. And I think that's the frustration for fans, that they're not really seeing what they would have expected to see when Unai Emery's had over a year in the job. So he is under pressure, I think, but last night would have slightly eased that by getting the 3 points that everyone expected them to get.
Yeah, a couple of individuals I want to speak to you about. One is Pepe, of course, who got the 2 goals yesterday. Another one is Mesut Ozil. We'll touch on him first. I saw an interesting tweet from Sam Dean saying Arsenal have paid Mesut Ozil £3.7 million since the first day of the Premier League season. He's played 142 minutes of football in that time, which works out at around £26,000 per minute of football. He wasn't involved last night. What was going on with Ozil?
Well, it's turning into a bit of a sort of PR war, as you were saying. Ozil's tweet sort of, slightly before the match. I mean, it feels now as perhaps as big a stalemate as we've had during the Mesut Ozil career. I mean, he obviously gave that big interview during the international break, basically saying, putting the ball in Arsenal's court and explaining, I've got a contract till June 2021. I'm going to be staying here. I want to get back in the team. And I think Arsenal fans knew he probably wasn't going to play against Sheffield United on Monday night. Emery hasn't really wanted him in his Premier League team. Away from home at Sheffield isn't the sort of game you're going to play Mesut Ozil. But when you've got a team in the Europa League who are bottom of the Europa League group, they haven't won a single point in the whole competition. They haven't won away from Europe in 14 years. You would think if Emery's going to bring in Ozil, that this is the game to do it. Even just put him on the bench, but to completely leave him out of the squad, I think sends a clear message. And Emery will argue, he's looking long term. He wants to give someone like Smith Rowe a game, youngsters at the club. But it's a situation that needs resolving, because you cannot have a person on £350,000 a week simply not playing. It's, as Sam mentioned in his tweet there, just from a monetary point of view, it makes no sense.
Yeah. Obviously, a positive last night was Pepe, the 2 free kicks. I mean, I've been quite critical of him on this show. I haven't really seen what it is that Arsenal have seen. Of course, he did very well last season. I appreciate that. But it doesn't seem to have happened for him to this point. Will last night be the boost that he needs to maybe allow him to kick on?
Yeah, I think last night was really, really huge for him. I think Pepe, it's a difficult one because, this is a guy who's never played, away from France. He's learning the language. He's still just about understanding English. He can't really speak it. He completely missed the pre-season because he was at the Africa Cup of Nations. He arrived. So I think Emery, to be fair, has stressed it was always going to take time for him to come good. And admittedly, I was in the same camp as you until sort of this week. I hadn't really seen what the fuss was about. But at Sheffield on Monday, I know he missed that very good chance. But there were moments where you saw him beating a man, you saw that flash of brilliance, and you thought, hang on, there's a player here. And then Julie last night, as soon as he scored that first free kick, you saw his shoulders almost, expand out, his chest puffed out. And when they got that free kick in the last minute, Ceballos was running over to have a look at it. Other players were there. But Pepe instantly, like any big player, was like, no, give me the ball. I'm going to stand up and be the man to deliver. And he duly did it. So it feels like, for him, that could be a night we look back on and go, yeah, that's when Nicolas Pepe really arrived in England.
Another player that impressed, Martinelli, who's impressed pretty much every time he's played, from what I can see. Another goal. Is it about time he broke through into the starting 11 in the Premier League? Yeah, well, I was making this point last night in my piece that, Saka, who's obviously been fantastic, 18-year-old winger, was great against Frankfurt, and he got his opportunity from that. But for me, Martinelli, the body of evidence he's producing probably outweighs a lot of the other young players. I mean, 5 goals for Arsenal already. He's got an assist, and it's just the manner of his goals. They're all very different goals. He scored that header last night. We saw against Nottingham Forest him scoring from long range. He just seems to have that sort of ability in the box to be a real threat. And Emery, aside from his ability to score goals, seems to really like Martinelli for his drive, his work ethic, and his pressing. He seems to buy into that. And with that slot, seemingly being taken up by Saka, by Nelson, you would think Martinelli is now perhaps pushing to be the man who can break into the first team. And a quick word on Guendouzi as well. Another positive, it has to be said, and certainly a positive this season. Of course, won the free kick with the drive and run that Arsenal scored from. What's your take on him so far?
Yeah, I mean, for me, he's been Arsenal's best player this season, perhaps only just beaten by Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. In that midfield, when he's not on the pitch, they just seem to lack that sort of drive, that enthusiasm, that willingness to get on the ball. And that, for me, with Guendouzi is the big thing about him. He will constantly, demand the ball. He will never hide. And last night, as you say, when they were absolutely on the ropes there towards the end, desperately trying to get it, he goes back, he wins the ball, he drives forward, he wins the free kick, and Arsenal score from it. And he, at the moment, is the one who's sort of keeping that midfield together, because when he's not there, they don't really seem to have any sort of drive or go forward in it. So he's suddenly become, one of Arsenal's most important players. And, only a year ago, everyone was saying, who's this kid that Arsenal signed from the French second division? And now he's perhaps one of the key players in that team and someone Emery really can't afford to have injured or not in the side.
Yeah, indeed. Great stuff. Simon, appreciate you joining us.
Thanks, guys.
That's Simon Collins, our sports reporter for the Evening Standard, giving us his thoughts on last night. In fact, we can hear Martin Keown's thoughts on Pepe.
Maybe Pepe can do this, but everybody has to have that first step, that first moment. Now we're going to see how good he really is. And if he is as good as that 72 million, then Arsenal would have done some good minutes. The fans have been worried because Saka looks a better player until now. But now we have 2 maybe great players to look forward to seeing.
Mike, your thoughts?
Yeah, it is amazing how quickly things can change. It just makes you feel a bit sick, actually.
Fickle industry.
It is, yeah, but it's needlessly fickle. Like, Pepe can't go from being in the ultimate flops 11 on the Mail Online, which I actually think Martin Keown might have picked.
Right.
And now he's going, well, we've got 2 great players here ready for the future. I mean, what's going on?
That's the industry we're in, though, right? It's a reactive industry, and it is game by game. It's a cliche in football, you're only as good as your last game. And it's so true, because fans, you can go from being the absolute hero one week to being the villain of the piece the next.
Yeah, I suppose. Mesut Ozil, I think, might have lost it.
What makes you say that?
Well, he's tweeted some stuff like a picture of him laughing. It's like, you make me laugh. And there's something like all the kind of cryptic stuff where someone comments underneath, you okay, hun? He's like, DM me. It's all that kind of classic thing like, oh my gosh, you will not believe what's just happened. What's just happened? Can't tell you, hun. Can't tell you. Can't tell you. Oh, I'd have to kill you.
I feel like you've done this yourself.
No, I've not done it. I have seen it before, so I've just started making stuff up.
Yeah.
So I'll comment underneath it, things like, I know, tell me about it, as if he'd do that to you. And leave it there. Leave it there like that. Let it hang there like a stale fart. Chaos. But it's wrong because if you're going to put something this in Patrick Christys Britain, that would be illegal. If you put something like that on Facebook, you have to explain it to the world.
Yeah, I once tried a cryptic.
Or show me your internet history. That's the choice.
One of two.
One of two.
Yeah, I once tried to put something out cryptic, but within 10 seconds somebody replied and guessed it straight away.
Wasn't that because you basically told everyone you were on your way to LA Galaxy?
Yeah, because I thought that.
What did you put? What did you say, mate?
I'm dreaming of a galaxy far, far away.
Oh, mate.
Yeah, I know, it's pretty cringe.
It is
a bit embarrassing, actually, when I think about it now. So within 10 seconds, someone said, "Are you going to the Galaxy?" Which at the time I was, and then it fell through, unfortunately.
Right.
Not unfortunately, I love being at Watford. So.
Yeah, I know, of course.
I didn't want to go to LA Galaxy at the time.
Fell through, and that's just the way the cookie crumbles.
And they signed Donovan Ricketts from Bradford instead of me from Watford. I'm not bitter about it at all. Kieran is with us. He has his mic there. How are we, Kieran?
Yeah, very well. I just want to, because my Spanish isn't quite as good as Emery's English, I'm just going to translate what Emery said about Ozil in the press conference, right?
Hang on a second. Did he say this in English?
Yeah, sorry, yeah, he did, yeah.
Right.
But I don't have the clip, so I'm going to speak.
Yeah, got you, right. Yeah,
that's the real reason, Patrick.
I thought you were just going to play him saying it and then go, so what he said then?
He said, so he was asked about Ozil and where he is in the matchday squad. Tonight is not the day to speak about that.
Do the voice. Do the accent.
Emery, when... No, Patrick. Patrick, no. When is the day to speak about that then, Unai?
Yeah.
Like, you're going to have to address it at some point. You can't just be like, well he's still not here.
You'd be surprised how long you can put stuff like this off.
Oh,
you know, there's always a reason.
I had a mate who put off breaking up with his girlfriend for months until his girlfriend had to ring his mum and she had to go into his room and go, can you just speak to her, please? So it can be put off quite a while.
Yeah. He said, I prefer to speak about the match. We have all the players who played. He's not in the squad. That is the decision tonight. Now we're going to work towards Sunday.
Do you reckon Ozil's like that guy in the office who turns up, does absolutely naff all, like nothing whatsoever, and then complains when they don't get a chance to do something and they'll huff and puff and they're that person everyone hates?
Quite possibly. There's always a few of them in the changing room.
Yeah, is there?
Of course. Well, do you know what? It's very easy. When you're not selected in the squad, then there's that... Yeah, you suddenly the mindset changes, and that's where the little click. This is the best teams don't have that, or certainly not as much. Where they know an opportunity's there, they kind of know their pecking order, and they feel like if they are due a chance, they'll get a chance, and vice versa. I think the best squads seem to have that, but the not so good squads are the ones where you do get the little cliques forming, where there is a player playing that seems to relentlessly play despite being pretty poor. And similarly, players that, I suppose Ozil will probably be a good example of this without knowing him, but somebody that is on huge money but doesn't seemingly give the body language that they're giving absolutely everything.
But it's nuts. I mean, in what other realm of fantasy do you play 142? Well, do you work for 142 minutes and get £3.7 million? It's incredible, isn't it? That Ozil's on this money. Obviously, I can't imagine Emery has got the power to say, right, I'm just going to freeze Ozil out. This must be a higher-up decision to just not have Ozil anywhere near the matchday squad.
I would assume that, because it doesn't... This kind of game as well, if you are going to include him...
Absolutely.
This is the kind of... Which is the more concerning part. So, you're right, he's going to have to address it at some point. You would think there'll be a press conference before the game Sunday. They're going to ask him again. You can't keep putting it off. At some point, he's either just got to... Look, ultimately, he's not going to be there long term. That's the impression that we get. It just needs to, I guess, be laid out sooner rather than later, you'd think.
Yeah, absolutely. And the last game he played was in the Carabao Cup third round against Nottingham Forest, so that's going to be his last ever game.
Do you not think, though, he's going to look back on his career, one day and just think, like, I could have played so many more matches. Like, at some point, he's not going to be able to play anymore, and he's not going to be able to, he's going to be sat there. But even little things, like if you have kids and stuff, like as a footballer, you want to be able to go, oh, look, I did this, did that. And, of course, he can do that to an extent, but... If they just look at the last few years of his career, he's been a shambles.
Yeah, it's tricky. Do you know, it is tricky though, because all right, speaking from personal experience, even though I played a lot of games in the Championship and League One, the majority of my games played in the Championship and League One. When people ask me about my career, I instantly go to the biggest games I played, which was a handful in the Premier League. So I think for Mesut Ozil, he's played some incredible games.
He has. He won a World Cup.
Right. So it's not like he's going to be short of stories. But I hear what you say. That the reason I then joined Brentford, I could have stayed at Watford. The reason I did was because of what you just said there, where I had that realisation at the age of 27. I played about 100 games, 110 games, and I felt like, actually, these next 5 years, really, I want to rack up a decent number of games.
Yeah,
and
if
so
you've got
that
a bit
was
of self-respect about you, surely that's what you want to do. You want lived experience, because it is going to end at some point, isn't it? It's all going to end for Mesut Ozil.
It's all going to end at
and he's
some
going to
point.
sit there going, oh, well, actually... Because there will come a time when he's in his 50s when he wishes that he could still run around and gallivant around a football pitch. And the fact is that when he could do it, he wasn't doing it.
13 minutes to 9.
Giving your team the coverage they deserve. Love Sport Radio.
You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah? Really? It's just there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it.
Sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
It's cancer, they said. My first thought, let's just say it wasn't money, but time off work for treatment and trips to the hospital, paying the rent, and the cost of living doesn't go away just because you're living with cancer, and Macmillan can help with that too. My advice? Take their advice. Soon as. I did.
Macmillan, right there with you. Search Macmillan Money Worries.
Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October. Find out what you need to do to prepare at gov.uk/Brexit.
Are you being fobbed off by a company? Are they letting you down? And are your complaints falling on deaf ears?
We can help you out. Come to aspokesmansaid.com and we will give you a voice and a platform to raise your complaints. As recommended in the Daily Telegraph,
aspokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
This is Ian Stone. I'm here on Love Sport Radio every Saturday afternoon from 12 till 3. My father said I could have been a professional footballer. My father was a big fan of mine. I was 21 years old and I was playing for a team. My father was the manager and made me Player of the Year.
Oh.
He walked into the dressing room and he went, Player of the Year this year? Well, I think it's Ian. Ian Stone every Saturday afternoon, 12 till 3.
Love Sport. This is Love Sport.
Love for Breakfast, me, Richard Lee Patrick. Christys here with you until 10 a.m. We're now going to go through some of the back pages. Kieran Wellington is joining us to do just that.
I am indeed. And Zlatan Ibrahimovic has made a few headlines over in America. Of course, it's the playoffs in the MLS. And it didn't quite go to plan.
They lost.
They did. They lost 5-3, and not just to any team, but it was the LA Derby.
Yeah, they're rivals, the new franchise.
Team, yeah, and
it's a blow, isn't it?
Got a bit heated.
He scored though.
Yeah, he did, but
he scored a few, didn't he?
He's a serial winner, isn't he?
He is.
Yeah.
And he bowed out in controversial fashion because this is his last game, we reckon, for LA Galaxy. And basically, a fan was, mocking it, as you do. You're going to mock the opposition fans, aren't you? When you just want a big derby like that in such a key game. And he grabbed his crotch just to say, "I am Zlatan. Here's my piece." And then he basically said, "If I don't stay, nobody will remember what MLS is."
Wow.
So all that's gone before him: Beckham, Gerrard, Lampard.
Irrelevant.
No, irrelevant.
He's modest, though, isn't he?
That might be up there with the most arrogant things he said. I mean, he is known for an arrogant quote, most of which I absolutely love.
He was asked what he got his girlfriend for her birthday. He said nothing. She already has Zlatan.
Yeah.
No, seriously,
Fantastic.
he said that.
Yeah.
So,
Where do you see him going next? 38 now.
I know, but he's still good. Do we know how many goals he got this year? It was plenty, because it seemed like every Monday morning that we're here, it's always another Zlatan goal. Some brilliant goals as well at that. So, yeah, he'll carry on. I mean, I get the impression with him, he's another one like Ronaldo, where he's so physically fit that he's got another couple of years. The fact that he had that knee injury at United as well, and you kind of thought, oh, maybe that is it. Maybe he'll just fade away now. And he's still going strong. Where do I think he'll go next? There is the opportunity that he might stay in the MLS, right? He might do another year or two.
Yeah, he might well do. He said, not being disrespectful. When you start with something like that, it's going to be pretty bad.
That is literally like the one who's like, well, I've got gay friends, but no.
Yeah, no offence, but...
Yeah, exactly. Not being disrespectful, but this is like training for me. The stadium is too small for me. I'm used to playing in front of 80,000. This is a walk in the park.
Amazing.
I mean, just incredible.
Not being disrespectful, but I'm going to hugely disrespect anybody that's played in the MLS, like you say, including the likes of Gerrard, Beckham, whoever else.
Who else?
Wayne?
No, who else?
Go on.
Who took your place in the MLS?
Why'd you do it?
Go on, who was it?
Donovan Ricketts. Why?
Screw you, Donovan Ricketts!
Why'd you do it?
Crusher of
So
dreams.
the story goes, do you want to know the story? Or not really?
Yeah.
Okay, so basically, I was in the running. It was back in the Beckham era, so I was 26, I think, 25, 26.
Yeah.
So Beckham was there, full flow, MLS starting to grow, and I knew there was interest. It was at me and Donovan Ricketts. I was playing in the Championship. He was playing in League Two for Bradford. No-brainer.
No comparison.
Bruce Arena was the manager at LA Galaxy, so I'm waiting for the decision. Decision comes through. Do you want to know why they chose Donovan Ricketts?
Why?
He's taller.
Classic.
Hurts, doesn't it?
Classic.
Really, really
Now
hurt.
you know how Adele's ex feels.
Yeah.
So, this season, Zlatan has played 31 games. Do you want to guess how many he scored?
17.
Patrick?
How many games was it?
31 games.
29.
31.
Oh, really?
Wow.
Goal a game. So,
Wow. So
That's
this
just
is it,
Zlatan, isn't
right?
it?
This is.
Right, okay, discuss. Could he still play in the Premier League?
Could he go to Man United? Could he be a short-term answer?
Could he just go to Man United?
That's been suggested, and I actually don't think it's a stupid idea because I think United, you're not going to get your number 9 in January. January's a dreadful window.
Just go and get Zlatan. Just go and get him.
Just he could come in, and the impact he'd have for the back end of the season, a little bit of a
Talk
band-aid.
about standards. You talk about desire. You talk about work ethic. You talk about leaders. Bish bash bosh. There's a massive Swedish man with all of that.
Yeah.
We've already got a song for him as well.
I fully agree. I fully agree. I think that for the back end of the season, United, if they do want to have that top 6 place, because it's more that. It's not now. This season, not going to win the league. So this season's a case of it's a rebuild. It's a transition. Are you going to find your number 9 in January? I don't think so, unless you pay hundreds and hundreds of millions.
Zlatan is going to get you a goal from open play, which right now, Manchester United literally can't buy, actually.
The number of shots on target they're having per game at the moment is
shocking.
horrendously low. You'd feel that, yeah, you would. I think if you bring in a Zlatan...
Marcus Rashford learns from him. That's the other thing. Look at Marcus Rashford now. Everyone's expecting him to be the great hope of the game going forward. Who's he learning from? He's got no one to learn from there. You go, all right, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, I get the impression he's got a lot on at the minute. You know, there's not a Zlatan figure. There's not a Rooney figure. There's not a Giggs. There's not a Scholes.
Yeah, he's got a lot on. He's doing a conservatory at the moment.
It's not a Fellaini. Yeah, he is. And what a lovely conservatory that is.
It really is.
The type of conservatory Ole Gunnar Solskjaer goes for, do you reckon it's just very middle of the road?
Yeah.
He doesn't go for one of the fancy pants ones. He could afford it, but that would be extravagant.
No.
Yeah, this one is just bang in the middle of the range.
Uses it as a playroom or something.
Yeah. Sits in there, reads The Guardian at a weekend.
I feel like you might have more stories for us, Kieran.
Yeah, I do indeed. And this is one on Jack Rodwell. Whatever happened to Jack
Do you know what? I've
Rodwell?
literally just seen this, and I now know what's happened to Jack
Go
Rodwell.
on then, do you want to tell the listeners?
He is signing in Italy, isn't he?
Yeah, he's going to sign for Roma.
What the...
He's undergoing a medical, apparently.
Has the game gone? Is that a question I can ask? I don't... I don't get that. How's that come about?
And so there you see Jack Rodwell departing from Heathrow to Roma. Watch the game there. Just fly away.
There it is.
It's a
bad game.
It's a pretty damning indictment of Chris Smalling, to be honest.
Yeah.
Mate, no,
that they
it's not.
see
Chris
him in the
Smalling-
same bracket as Jack Rodwell.
No. One of my great life regrets is that I ever paid to watch Chris Smalling play in the Flash. It's true. It's shocking.
Brutal.
Oh, mate, he's horrendous.
Right. Anyway, how's this come about? I have no idea. Is this because he's a free
apparently-
transfer and there's not many around?
Well, they're in the midst of an injury crisis at the moment in central midfield Roma. So, yeah, as you say, he left Blackburn earlier this year, obviously was on extortionate wages and presumably still feels he can earn a decent wage at a decent club. Roma are a massive club.
Yeah.
They're going to be offering some good money.
What do you reckon their checklist was for making that signing? Do you reckon they've gone, right, okay, well, we need someone who fundamentally absolutely can't be bothered with the game anymore, somebody who's done nothing to warrant a move over here, somebody who at once seemed like they had potential but actually just flew it straight into the ground?
Well, I reckon they use that filter on Football Manager. So they've gone on like expired contracts, and then they filtered it by like international caps. They're like, oh, we need an international player.
Well, I suppose this is it.
Jack
right?
Rodwell, 3 England caps, perfect.
Yeah, get him in.
How often do you see this player that has that good season And they can live off that for 10 years because clubs continually take a chance on them thinking that there's something there. We can bring the best out of them.
Is it a bit like the Ravel Morrison case?
Yeah, well, he's not really played, has he? He's not really featured for Sheffield United.
No, he hasn't.
But he's not all over the back pages.
No,
which is nice.
Similar in certain ways, but then different in that Jack Rodwell, like you say, the only other you see it in business because it's different, because you don't necessarily lose your talent in business. You know, you might have someone who has a non-compete for a year and then they come back a year later in the same industry and do whatever they do. But in football, going without playing for that period of time, if anything, your next move should be League One, League Two. No disrespect to League One, League Two. How do you sign for Roma? I don't get it. Well, look, if you guys have any more information on this or you want to give us your thoughts on this, 0208 70 20 558 is the number. You can also get in touch, of course, on YouTube or on the socials at Love Sport Radio. The time is 3 minutes to 9.
Love Sport. Listen to Love Sport Radio on your smartphone today. Simply download the free Love Sport app from the App Store or Google Play. Tap the play button and you'll be able to listen to your favourite station. Anytime, anywhere. Love Sport Radio, the station giving fans a voice.
Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October. Brexit will bring changes that affect businesses in many ways, particularly if you buy from EU suppliers, sell to EU customers, provide services to EU clients, and receive customer data from other businesses in the EU. Businesses need to prepare. Find out how at gov.uk/Brexit. Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October.
When looking for the best possible deal for his car insurance, Jim went on a spokesmansaid.com and saved hundreds.
I'm Jim. I'm a radio presenter based in Glasgow. I couldn't believe how expensive the car insurance for our Citroen C4 Picasso was going to be from my existing insurer. I went on a Spokesman Said and saved an incredible £600. Just amazing.
Find quotes from over 100 leading insurance providers at a spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
The Novotel London Blackfriars, the official hotel partner of Love Sport. Located just minutes away from the city and London's famous South Bank. You can kick back and taste the flavours of the world at the Jamboree Bar and Grill and enjoy all the sights of London in style. The Novotel London Blackfriars.
Premier League, Championship and fan shows. 7 days a week. We've got your team covered. Love Sport.
That's for breakfast. Me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys here with you until 10 a.m. And I feel like we've saved the best for last. Patrick, got a brilliant last hour coming up. We will be speaking to Mark Flanagan, Love Sports Northwest correspondent. Of course, United did win yesterday against Partizan Belgrade. We'll also be previewing the game between City and Aston Villa, which takes place tomorrow. Yeah. We're going to be speaking to Adam Jones, former Welsh front row. Of course, Wales take on South Africa on Sunday. And we have our usual with Ben Dinnery, injury analyst, finding out what players we need to avoid for our fantasy football squads.
Exactly. We're also going to be talking about Britain's saddest man, Samuel Barsky, who knits landmarks.
I'm excited to talk about that. That's the bit that we're looking forward to in this last hour. Yeah. As always, get in touch, 0208 70 20 558 or at Love Sport Radio on the socials. The time is 9 o'clock.
On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker. This is Love Sport News.
From the Sky News Centre at 9, the Prime Minister has challenged MPs to support a general election on the 12th of December if the EU grants a 3-month extension to Brexit. A decision could come from Brussels today. Boris Johnson would need 2/3 of MPs to back his plan for an early vote, but some opposition parties say they're against the idea. Chancellor Sajid Javid says an election is the only way to solve the issue.
If we don't have this election, then we will continue with this zombie parliament. Nothing will be happening. Our country will be left behind. The key decisions that we need to take for this country won't be made. We're focusing on the people's priorities.
Police are continuing to question a man after 39 bodies were found in a lorry trailer in Essex. Emergency services have begun trying to identify the victims, all of whom are believed to be Chinese. Health bosses say they'll take urgent action to reverse the decline in vaccination rates among preschool children. Figures show the target of 95% has been missed for 6 out of 7 jabs in England. The Australian landmark of Uluru will permanently close to tourists tomorrow. Hundreds of people have gathered gathered at what's also known as Ayers Rock to climb it for the final time. Lee Halfpenny returns at full-back for Wales's Rugby World Cup semi-final against South Africa on Sunday. He replaces the injured Liam Williams in one of 3 changes. Coach Warren Gatland is happy they have such an experienced player coming into the team.
He's probably defensively the best fullback in the world in terms of his aerial game, his coverage defensively. And to be honest, we had a long discussion and a long debate about whether we started Lee in the first place.
And it was a good night for the British clubs in the Europa League. Arsenal beat Victoria, Manchester United won at Partizan Belgrade, Wolves defeated Slovan Bratislava, and Celtic recorded a memorable victory over Lazio. That's the latest. I'm Kat Suave.
This is Love Sport.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
If you've already got one of the 13 million smart meters installed across Britain, we'd just like to say
thank you.
Our electricity needs are predicted to double by 2050, so we have to upgrade our outdated energy system. Just by having a smart meter in your home, you'll be helping the system to better anticipate demand and reduce waste. So we'd just like to say thank you for getting the smart meter. From the Campaign for a Smarter Britain.
Love Sport Radio. On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker. This is Love Sport Breakfast with Richard Lee and Patrick Christys.
Good morning, Love Sport Breakfast, Love Sport Radio. Me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys here with you for another hour or so. Then, of course, it's the brilliant Martin Bell who is up after us. Just to touch on the top stories this morning, of course, it's a huge weekend in rugby coming up. England are taking on New Zealand. We're going to be talking to Adam Jones, former Welsh front row, about the other game that's taking place this weekend. Of course, Wales taking on South Africa. It was a successful night in the Europa League for our British clubs. Wins for Manchester United, Arsenal and Wolves, and a good win as well for Celtic. Good draw for Rangers too. We're going to be talking about that further in this hour too. We're also going to be speaking to Ben Dinnery, our injury analyst, and getting Mark Flanagan's thoughts on Manchester United's win last night against Partizan Belgrade. I am joined, as ever, by Mr. Patrick Christys. Patrick, how are we getting on?
Yeah, I'm all right, thank you, mate. I'm all right.
Excellent. We will be speaking to Mark Flanagan very shortly because it was a win for Manchester United yesterday, and of course there's a big game for City tomorrow. They do take on Aston Villa
Can we have
at home.
a serious conversation about when is too early to start drinking alcohol?
Okay, we can.
Yeah.
Go on.
Because England game's at 9 a.m.
Yeah.
tomorrow.
Yeah.
Against New Zealand in the
Okay.
semi-final of the Rugby World Cup. Is it justified that I can crack the beers open at 9 a.m?
I'll tell you what.
Yeah.
Let's hold that thought. Okay,
Okay.
because I feel like this is something we do need to go
Oh,
into
it's 9
depth
a.m.
on.
now.
It is. Does it feel like you could drink a beer now?
Hang on.
How does that taste? Is it?
Yes, it does,
Right,
actually.
there you go.
Oh, that's okay.
This could be the start of
Yeah.
a worrying downturn in Patrick Christys' career.
Or
Delighted to
just a return.
Let's not go there. Mark Flanagan, Love Sports Northwest correspondent, is on the line. Morning, Mark.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just putting my can of Carlsberg down.
Mark, get in!
Don't encourage him, Mark. Please. It's he's bad enough as it is in the mornings. Good win yesterday for, well, I'll say a good win for United. Let's talk about the game. They won 1-0 away at Partizan Belgrade. First away win since Ole Gunnar Solskjaer got the job on a permanent basis. They did only have one shot on target. What do we make of the performance last night?
Well, I think it was a good character building thing, really, for a lot of those players. Like you say, when you haven't won for so long, any win's a good one. And I think obviously it's easy to forget as well how good Partizan are at home. They've beaten better teams than United in Europe recently. I think it's 12 games without a defeat at home, and those trips into Eastern Europe are notoriously difficult, and obviously a poignant victory as well. In the Busby Babes' last appearance together was in that stadium all those years ago, and Partizan famously beat United in '66 in a semi-final. So there's a lot of history, and it would have meant a lot to Partizan, and you could see how fervent the crowd were. It was an extraordinary atmosphere, and some young kids for United rose to the occasion, notably obviously Brandon Williams, who were obviously led by example and I think deservedly was identified as the man of the match by Ollie.
Yeah. Tony Marshall. He's all right, isn't he? He's back in action now. 4 goals in his last 5 games, actually. 3 himself, 1 assist as well. So he's been involved in 4 goals last 5 games, I should say. 3 goals himself, 1 assist. How important is it for United to have him back?
It's definitely huge. And Marshall, with the right attitude and fully fit, is critical. I think obviously he is a really kind of standout attacker that they've got. It was interesting actually. Ollie was very critical of the defending from the front, and I think that's the big worry about Marshall is the yards that he puts in the games, and they're doing the dirty work, which is critically important if you're a striker defending from the front. Obviously, that's something that I think he needs to work on. I think that's being kind to him. But I think it was interesting that Solskjaer pointed that out straight away in the press conference afterwards, that he wasn't happy with the way that his team defended from the front. And obviously the second half developed, the pressure that grew on the goal was considerable, and United got away with it in many respects. But I guess with everything that's happened in recent weeks, you obviously take that and move forward. And they haven't conceded a goal in Europe, and if you don't concede, you've got a good chance of winning. So at least they've got that foundation, which appears to be sort of slowly being put in place.
Indeed. Brandon Williams, good signs for United's youth system. I know Ole Gunnar Solskjaer said he was his man of the match yesterday.
Yeah, he really kind of rose to the occasion, didn't he? And obviously won the penalty as well, surging forward. He seems to have everything in his game. He looks good going forward. He looks strong, and obviously that strength of character as well, which you need when you're under the cosh, like the United were for so long during that game. I'm struggling to think of an occasion where he really kind of struggled. Good positionally. He gets forward as well and looks good on the ball. He's quick enough. He's not lightning quick, but he's quick enough. So he's got all the components to make a top player. And I think critically as well, the attitude that Ollie kind of pointed towards. I think he mentioned the word attitude twice when he was talking about him after the game, and that's critical when you've obviously got a team that's struggling as well. Yeah,
and I just think as well, he's exactly Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's type of player. Born in Manchester, it says Brandon Paul Brian Williams. It doesn't get much more English than that, does it? Fantastic stuff. But he just kind of epitomises what Solskjaer wants to bring through, doesn't it? Exciting, young, homegrown talent. And do you think, given it, we've seen enough now, I think, of Solskjaer's tenure at United, and it's fair to say it's been mixed at best, but do you think there are signs that actually, if they just persist with him, that this will come good in the end?
God, it's such a difficult question, isn't it? I think what they do over the next 3 or 4 weeks is massive with the in the Premier League, because obviously sometimes Europe can be somewhat of a distraction in terms of the overall picture, and you're never quite sure of the quality of the opposition. I just think that their inability to break down teams who they should beat is a huge worry, and he just doesn't seem to have a plan B going forward. And I think that's the kind of the $64,000 question is, can they go away to Norwich and Bournemouth, and if they can't break down that kind of wall of defence, can they find a way through? They just don't seem to have that kind of imagination and variation in their play, which is a massive worry, which you have to have, because teams at this level will find you out very quickly if your plan A doesn't work. And I think that's the big worry. I think the other big worry is his substitutions don't often seem to come off, and he doesn't seem to be able to sort of change it mid-flow, which all the really good managers have that kind of knack of just finding a way of altering the flow of a match, and Solskjaer hasn't demonstrated that yet.
Paul Scholes had an interesting comment to make, and I'm keen to get your thoughts on this.
We think you might have got the answer, though. Mesut Ozil. I knew you wouldn't want me to say this on there, but we were watching the game, and you said someone like Ozil would make a real difference in this team. He's completely not involved for Arsenal this evening.
Yeah, no, I can't understand that. I think he's a player who can link a team together. I think he's got great quality. He's shown that in his career. He could be an answer short term, I don't know. I think that would be up to him, ultimately, if he wants to take a...
Could you imagine it happening?
No, I probably can't, but I just think he's the type of player, short term, that United could do with.
I think the big question here is Paul Scholes okay? I mean, no, but Go on, on a serious note, could Ozil actually end up at United?
It's one of those things when you're scrolling through Twitter and you're flicking through all the kind of comments that people make, and then someone will throw in, "Why don't you get Ozil?"
Yeah.
And you think, well, why would you do something so daft and suggest something so daft? Like I say, I can't understand what he was thinking. On so many levels, it doesn't sort of work. And in terms of the ethos, why pick a player who is on the face of it moody, unpredictable, when you've got enough of that in your team as at the moment, who obviously doesn't work, who doesn't track back. On his day, and he can do some sublime things. He's fantastic, but so can Pogba, and they can't get him to work. And obviously Arsenal are just obviously not going to sell to United at this stage of the season, even on a loan deal. I can't see it happening. So I think there's got to be a different way forward for them.
Very true. Lastly, just on you touched on it earlier, that defensively they are becoming that little bit more solid, you feel. Do you think it is a case of that? They're almost doing it bit by bit. That first and foremost, let's get that base. And then once we've got that, they've spoke about potentially bringing in a number 9. There's maybe 2 or 3 players they're still looking at in the January window, certainly next summer. But then it might be this time next year. They've got that solid defensive base to build from, and they can add 2 or 3 players. Then we'll have that United team once more that's challenging?
Not particularly. I think they've just been able to do the defensive bit because they've been able to get the players that they wanted. They were able to get Wan-Bissaka and Maguire, and certain other players that they wanted they just haven't been able to get. I think obviously it's a plus point to be able to do it, but I'm sure when Ollie was looking at his summer targets, he was looking at 2 or 3 more attacking minded players as well. When you're in a situation where you're obviously having to get rid of quite a few players, experienced players, and then bring players in, any kind of plus point is a positive. But I don't believe it's what he was planning to do from the outset. Every great team has a good defence, and so that's a feather in his cap. But you can't get away from the feeling it was kind of the easy bit to do. The hard bit at the other end of the pitch is obviously what United fans are desperate for him to address. They've only scored 1 goal. I think, apart from Chelsea, they've only scored 1 goal or less in every other game this season, and that's such a damning statistic and so alien to what United fans are used to.
Yeah, indeed. Mark, appreciate you joining us.
No problem.
That's Mark Flanagan there, Love Sports Northwest correspondent, giving us his thoughts on United yesterday. Of course, City take on Villa as well tomorrow. I just want to talk to you briefly on that, Patrick, because it's City. It's not. I mean, look, they're still doing fine in the Premier League. They're 6 points off Liverpool, of course. Liverpool have had an extraordinary start. However, a couple of results that haven't gone City's way, but you still feel that they are every bit the team they were last season. Just a couple of defensive frailties.
Yeah, there's a story here in The Sun about how John Stones might be on thin ice. Of course, he wasn't ready to come on when Pep Guardiola wanted him to. And apparently, in Pep's first few weeks as boss of Barcelona, he axed substitutes who didn't celebrate their team's goals. Now, he's obviously rode back a little bit from that level of intensity. But John Stones could be on really thin ice here.
Yeah, well, look, we'll talk about that in more detail in the next bit. We're also going to be talking to Adam Jones, former Welsh front row, 95 caps for Wales. Of course, Wales take on South Africa on Sunday. We'll be talking more England, New Zealand as well. 9:15.
This is Love Sport.
Join me, Ewan Thomas and the Posh Boys here on Love Sport Drive this Friday as we count down to the Rugby World Cup semi-finals. All the build-up to England versus New Zealand and a massive weekend of football, all on Love Sport.
Love Sport.
Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October. This means that travelling to the EU will change. You'll need to check online if your passport is valid for travel to Europe. If you're planning on driving, you'll need to check if you have the right documents to drive and make sure your travel insurance covers all your healthcare needs. To keep your trip on track, check what you need to do at gov.uk/Brexit. Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October.
This is Lionel, another very happy person who saved themselves money at a spokesmansaid.com.
Hi, I'm Lionel from Peacehaven. I took note of what the spokesman said and I saved £484 per year on my energy, and I recommend everybody does the same.
A spokesmansaid.com. Getting real people, real savings. Compare, switch and save with a spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
This is Ian Stone. I'm here on Love Sport Radio every Saturday afternoon from 12 till 3. My father said I could have been a professional footballer. My father was a big fan of mine. I was 21 years old and I was playing for a team. My father was the manager and made me Player of the Year.
Oh.
He walked into the dressing room and he went, Player of the Year. This year, well, I think it's Ian. Ian Stone every Saturday afternoon, 12 till 3.
Love sport. Love sport.
Love Sport Breakfast. Me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys here with you until 10 a.m. Of course, we've been speaking plenty of rugby today because it's a massive weekend coming up. We have talked about England, New Zealand. In fact, if you did miss our interviews earlier, you can always go online and check out the show. A couple of great interviews earlier in regards to the England game. But we are going to talk Wales because they do take on South Africa on Sunday. And delighted to say we've got Adam Jones, former Welsh front row, on the line to discuss it with us. Morning, Adam.
Morning, how are you boys, right?
Yeah, good, thanks. Good. Hope you're well. This is an interesting lineup, this one. I mean, we were talking about it earlier, that South Africa will be favourites, it's fair to say. It wasn't a brilliant showing from Wales last time out, but they'll certainly be confident going into this one.
Oh, yeah, I think, obviously, it's a massive loss, Liam not being there. He's our kind of massive, he's our best game breaker, I guess, game line breaker, attacker, counter-attacker. But, you know, I imagine they're going to pep us with a few up and unders, and so I guess Lee Halfpenny's not, he's pretty experienced around that area, but it's going to be, it's kind of like I'd imagine they're going to, both sides are going to play very similar, big defence, very physical, and want to take each other on, and both sides attack hasn't been probably the best, but certainly it's going to be a bit of a battle of war of attrition there, I think.
Now, I know that Rich here is going to ask you some more in-depth stuff about the actual rugby. I've got the big question lined up here, which is when is it too early to start drinking, right? Because England play at 9 a.m, Wales play at 9 a.m. My missus is not going to be happy with me. Can I just get a message from you that just tells her that it's absolutely fine for me to get on the beers?
Well, you need a few liveners, don't you? So
Good lad. Good lad.
Probably about 7:30 I can start.
Yeah, 7:30 start. Nice and early. Good. Why not just carry on through, actually? Anyway, sorry about that. Rich, I think you've got a question about the actual rugby, have you?
Yeah, we do. It's upsetting that you're... The problem is, because what will happen is Patrick will do this on Saturday and Sunday, then suddenly Monday it just becomes habit. And this is it. Our show on Monday could turn into a shambles.
The clocks go forward on Sunday or back, don't they? So,
good. I like you.
That makes it even worse. This isn't going how it was meant to go.
May as well just drink through it, then.
Well, look, keen to get your thoughts on some of these Welsh lads. Of course, you played with a lot of them. They've got a fantastic attitude. We saw it in the French game. For as much as they weren't brilliant, they do have that never say die attitude, don't they?
Oh yeah, I think it's pretty much what Scott's been there 11 years now. Is something he kind of instilled from day one. By working hard in the opposition, in training or in the gym or whatever you do. So it's kind of it's rubbed off, and certainly the guys with the big leaders in our team, have got that attitude. Alan Wynne, Ken Owens, John Davis, these guys, they're pretty much 100% us all the time, and kind of it's infectious to the rest of the group. Then you have to be the same standard as these guys to make it in this team, which is then drives everyone on a wee bit more.
Yeah, I'm keen to hear your thoughts on Warren Gatland's comments. So this is what he had to say on Halfpenny.
He's probably defensively the best fullback in the world in terms of his aerial game, his coverage defensively. And to be honest, we had a long discussion, a long debate about whether we started Lee in the first place.
That's his thoughts, obviously, on Lee Halfpenny. You got no worries. I mean, you just touched on it there. You got no worries. The fact that he does have the experience he has.
Yeah, no. Look, he's won a series with the Lions. He was a player of the trip and all that. Look, I remember when I played with him. Sean Edwards would have one guy in the backfield, and the winger sort of pendulum in, and Lee would have to follow the ball. So wherever the ball on the field was, he'd have to. So he was constantly doing shuttles back and forth across the field. And he'd always be in position if there was a kick there or a little grubber kick, and or if you have to make a try, same tackle at the end. So I've got no worries whatsoever. Probably I don't know who's going to kick, but he's obviously a world class kicker. Him and Daniel are both fantastic. So, but we do probably lose a little bit with certainly in the attack with Liam not being there, but defence wise, which I'm sure we're going to be tested the weekend. You don't lose much at all with Lee.
On a positive, boost for Wales that Jonathan Davis declared fit to start?
Oh, massive, yeah. It's for me, he's probably the best 13 in the world. He's deceptively fast. He's not deceptively strong because he looks like a little bit of an ox. and he's massive. In both facets of the game, he's added a bit of a kicking game to his all-round game. With little grabber kicks through and that. But certainly when he first came into the Welsh squad, and I was there, he couldn't do. He probably kicked the floor more than the ball. But he was, the way he's developed that, he's the all-round 13, and I'm glad to see he's on the pitch.
Obviously, we know that South Africa pose all sorts of threats to this Welsh side. What do Wales need to look out for, though?
Obviously, they mauled pretty well against Japan, but I think it'll be a different kettle of fish with trying to maul against Alwyn, these guys, Jake Ball, these big boys, and I think that, obviously I must prop by heart, or proper. I love scrums, and I just think coming off the bench, they've got Kurtzhoff, they've got Koch, good props to come off the bench, experienced. And will they try squeezing the game that way against our youngish props come off the bench? So that might be a telling figure, but it's going to be pretty intense. And I think we if we can front up against them and go toe to toe with them and sort of get rid of that sort of dominance they want, then I don't see why we can't beat them.
Yeah, I'm quite keen to get, because I've never been involved in a scrum because I think it looks like I can't understand how people walk away from it, to be honest with you. But just talk to me a bit about that, because that is such a key component of rugby. It's such a big battle, and it can set the tone. When you're going into it, have you got a particular mindset that you'd have, or are there any sneaky little tricks you can pull when you're in that scrum to give you an advantage?
Oh yeah, I think with a scrum, I think obviously it's trains you a bit. So there's a lot of pressure. It's essentially a 2 tons pushing against each other. So but the main thing now is it can change the course of the game. It's still, if you go down the scrum, you can get a penalty out of your 22, you can kick it into the half. So it's a massive territory thing if you've got a good scrum. And then if you need to win a penalty in a given moment in the game, then if you've got a dominant scrum, you can win the penalty and kick the point. So it's a huge part of the game at the moment. But Wales we scrummed all right. We've gone okay. We haven't been I guess we haven't been ripping up trees, but we'll for the choice front row was pretty good, and I don't see why we can't hold them there, certainly. And there's plenty of tricks, and they got some experienced campaigners in their front row, so the beast, and he's been around a long time now, so I'm sure he'll have a few tricks up his sleeve to see if we can have a go at the Welsh props.
Yeah, indeed. Matt Dawson predicted that it would be an England-Wales final. We did that quite early on in the World Cup. Of course, there is the potential for that, although that being said, I think it's fair to say that both New Zealand and South Africa are favourites in their respective games. But how big could that be for British rugby if it were to be an England-Wales final?
Oh, yeah, I think this obviously it's been dominated by the Southern Hemisphere, isn't it? And the All Blacks winning in the last two, and South Africa 2007. Obviously, you guys you had a pretty strong team in 2003, but it's pretty much it's always been Southern Hemisphere dominated. But I think I would say it's a shift in power, but certainly if Wales didn't really got to the final, it'd be excellent for the Northern Hemisphere, because I think down south they probably look at it a bit more of a forward-orientated game, and you can't win a World Cup with just forwards. So it'd be a nice one to certainly get a bit of a feather in the cap from the Northern Hemisphere. By no means do I want England to win the World Cup, though. But if we got there, obviously I'd want Wales to win.
Yeah, no, of course. But I mean, I actually had quite an unpopular opinion before, which is not unlike me really. Which is that if England played Wales in the final, that I feel that actually debatably Wales should win it, because they'd have the bigger party. Right, because when England won the Cricket World Cup, we sent our cricketing heroes to a half-empty oval with crushing hangovers, let's be honest, to meet a bunch of school kids. That's not how you celebrate winning a World Cup, all right? You should go absolutely berserk. Whereas I reckon Cardiff would be rocking, mate.
Yeah, but in 2005 when England won the Ashes for the first time in years, that seemed a pretty big party.
That's true. Actually, that is very good. But we had Freddie Flintoff then. We haven't got anyone like that at the minute. I think you guys are doing better.
I know a couple of England boys, and I'm sure they can get pretty looks if they want.
Great stuff. Lastly, prediction for the game?
Wales by 5.
Great stuff. Appreciate that. Adam Jones there, former Welsh front row. Of course, 95 caps for Wales, given his prediction, Wales versus South Africa. He's going Wales by 5.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you know what? I want Wales to win. I massively want Wales.
It would be
to win.
huge, wouldn't it? If it was England-Wales final.
Oh, I'd love that.
Yeah.
That's the one. That's the one, actually. And to be honest, it's one of those as well where, like, I don't imagine I speak for every Englishman here, especially not those living around the Chester area. But I think there's really something about this Wales side, and I actually like the Welsh. I like the way they approach their sport. I like the fact they've got the heart on the sleeve. They're unashamedly emotional. They sing with passion. They love it. They put the Guinness away like no tomorrow as well when the rugby's on. I'm a massive fan of the Welsh, and I think even if England lost, I wouldn't be overly disappointed.
Well, there you go. I want to talk to you a little bit about the EFL, something we haven't touched on yet in the show, but of course there is another full list of fixtures tomorrow, and the Championship's very, very interesting as ever. Of course, I was at the Charlton game on Wednesday night. I'm going to talk to you about that. We're going to touch on that shortly. We're also going to speak to Ben Dinnery, injury analyst, find out which players you need to avoid for your fantasy football teams this weekend, and we're doing a little bit of preview of the Premier League as well. It's 27 minutes past 9.
This is Love Sport. Listen to Love Sport Radio on your smartphone today. Simply download the free Love Sport app from the App Store or Google Play. Tap the play button and you'll be able to listen to your favourite station. Anytime, anywhere. Love Sport Radio, the station giving fans a voice.
You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah? Really? It's just, there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it.
Sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
Full of skill. Full of flair. Full of desire. Fulham FC is full of fire. Be there at Craven Cottage as Fulham continue their surge towards the top of the Sky Bet Championship. Watch the unmissable action live in SW6, home of London's original football club. Absolutely brilliant. Grab your tickets now at fulhamfc.com.
Spokesmansaid.com is a leading price comparison website that allows you to compare every energy tariff on the market in seconds. We have more deals than any other comparison website offering energy prices, and our impartial independent switching service is free of charge. Nearly 50% of UK households have switched bills, and there are hundreds to be saved. Visit spokesmansaid.com, as recommended in The Guardian, The Times and The Sun. Spokesmansaid.com. The Novotel London Blackfriars, the official hotel partner of Love Sport. Located just minutes away from the city and London's famous South Bank. You can kick back and taste the flavours of the world at the Jamboree Bar and Grill and enjoy all the sights of London in style. The Novotel London Blackfriars. Love Sport.
That's for breakfast. Me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys here with you until 10. Then, of course, the brilliant Martin Bell is up after us. We're going to touch on the EFL before we speak to Ben Dinnery, our injury analyst. Of course, there is plenty going on in the EFL as ever in the Championship. Some interesting games taking place tomorrow. Just want to touch on a few here. So, Charlton away at West Brom. Of course, Charlton, who went down during the week, I was at that game against Bristol City. In fact, the Bristol City boss, Lee Johnson, has been charged by the FA for misconduct for alleged abusive language, towards a match official. This is in the game against Luton the other day. We'll touch on that. There was a really interesting interview with Lee Johnson, which we have to play, and I believe our producer has it ready.
Yeah, this is really weird.
So, for those who didn't see, Bristol City got a last-minute winner, which for Charlton fans, I felt sorry for Charlton because on the day I think they deserved at least a draw, if not more. They were very, very good, actually. I was really impressed. I can see exactly why they're doing as well as they are. However, last kick of the game, Bristol City win. Ashton Gate goes crazy. This was the interview, or the question that Lee Johnson was asked.
Speaking of excitement, better than sex?
Say it again. Say it up a little bit. Say it again. Say it.
Better than sex?
He just bottles it, doesn't he?
Doesn't commit to it, does he?
If you're going to say that, see
Yeah.
it through.
Say it.
Don't go.
Excitement, better than sex?
Do you know what makes
Better
this
than-
even... Do you know what makes this even funnier, though, is if you watch the clip, is Lee Johnson's reaction to it. Because he doesn't commit to it, Lee Johnson gives him a look of like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, but that's it, isn't it? If you commit to it, absolutely fine, right?
Yeah.
But there's been a couple of situations like that on TV. There was one from Evan Davies, who you will know from your time with The Apprentice. The baldy bloke who greeted you at the bottom of the lift.
Yeah.
Right, him.
From Dragon's Den. Right, yeah.
Oh, sorry, not The Apprentice.
Yeah. I didn't
Dragon's
make it
Den.
on The Apprentice.
No,
I got to
mate.
the last stage, but I didn't make it.
Did you actually?
I applied, yeah.
No!
Yeah.
No way!
I got told it was because my appearance on Come Dine With Me, I didn't make it, yeah. I got through every single
What,
stage.
because
Something
what?
to do with the fact that, yeah, I don't know. Anyway, go on, carry on. That's an irrelevant story.
Because
We're
you have
talking
to be
EFL.
a bit of a pillock to get on The Apprentice, don't you? You have to really say things that people don't like and come across exceptionally badly and in a way ruin your own...
This was it, I think, because you have to come across as like really arrogant.
Did you do that?
So, I mean, that's maybe why I didn't get on.
It's your USP, isn't it? Yeah, but Evan Davies, anyway, he was kind of making one of his debut performances as Newsnight guy. And he was at one of the Labour Party conferences, and he was literally stood there, and it was like his opening bit. And he's like, they say that some of the issues in the Labour Party are, and you can just see him bottle it, and he goes, a bit like herpes, they just keep coming back. And literally everyone's like, what? What? He just goes, anyway, I'm now joined by Labour's health minister. And everyone's like, all right, Evan, you all right, mate?
It's one of them that in your head you think this is going to be hilarious. I'm going to absolutely floor everyone. And then it comes to it and you have a slight doubt as you're about to say it. Right, I want to touch on a few of the There's a couple of interesting ones, actually. Millwall taking on Stoke, which, of course, Gary Rowett, Millwall taking on his former club.
I'd love to listen to Jonathan Ross saying Gary Rowett's name, by the way.
You've got no chance.
No chance at all. It's just noise.
Indeed. Touch on a couple of our other London clubs. Fulham away at Middlesbrough. Of course, Middlesbrough struggling quite badly this season, so they'll fancy their chances. As I mentioned Charlton, I was at that game. Felt really sorry for Charlton. Do you know what, though? I can see people still talk about Charlton being safe. And, of course, they're in a good position at the moment. They're 11 points off relegation. It's been a very solid start. If they keep doing what they did the other night, they're going to be absolutely fine. The big issue for Charlton at the moment, though, is the number of injuries which are racking up. We know about Lyle Taylor. Jake Forster-Caskey picked up a bad injury as well the other night. There was another injury as well. So that would be my worry for Charlton, is that they haven't necessarily got the strength in depth. Do you know what? We're going to come back to some EFL, and the fact that we're talking about injuries gives us a very nice segue, because, of course, we're now going to speak, or very
about
shortly...
your autobiography.
We're very shortly going to be speaking to Ben Dinnery, who is our injury analyst. We'll be talking to him in a minute. In fact, before we do speak to him, one other fixture I just want to touch on before we do that. Sheffield Wednesday Leeds, Yorkshire Derby. Leeds doing very well, Sheffield Wednesday doing very well. Of course, Sheffield Wednesday third, Leeds second. Arguably the fixture in the Championship this weekend?
Yes, I think so. Both clubs with, a proud history taking to each other. I think it's going to be a good game. It should be all right.
Fantastic. Well, look, we are going to speak to Ben Dinnery right now. He is on the line. Morning, Ben.
Good morning, Rich. How are you?
Well, yeah, good, thanks. Hope you're well too. So where do we kick off? I know there's a few interesting bits of news. Let's start with Troy Deeney, shall we?
With Troy Deeney, yeah, good news for Watford supporters and Troy Deeney. He's back on the training pitches, so took his first steps outside. Now, it's not a false dawn here. We're not expecting a return, anytime soon. It could be still another 2, 3, possibly even 4 weeks. So maybe after the international break. But certainly good news, and particularly when we consider that Danny Welbeck looks to have suffered quite a serious hamstring injury, which could keep him out for the remainder of the year.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, there's a few on the injury table at the minute, aren't there? You said that Daryl Janmaat has overcome a minor knock, though. So I suppose that's a boost.
It is, yeah. He picked up a minor knock last weekend, but he has trained and he's absolutely fine. And with regards to a couple of the other players, again, they're nearing a return to play. Isaac Success, Sebastian Prodel and Etienne Capoue have all been struggling in recent weeks, but they have been taking part in the sessions and what Quique Flores referred to as modified sessions. So they're not fully ingrained with the squad at the moment. So, this weekend may come a little bit too soon, but there's a possibility that it could either return in the Carabao Cup or possibly in Week 11.
James Maddison, he's been in and out of Leicester's team recently. Is he a doubt for tonight?
He isn't. So that's great news for Leicester supporters. As we know, he picked up an ankle problem against Tottenham a few weeks back, and then he was released from the England camp due to illness. Now, the combination of those two affected his training in the build-up to the Burnley game, and he wasn't fully match fit. He done well to complete, around about sort of 60, 70 minutes. But Brendan Rodgers said that Maddison has been back with the squad. He's trained as normal. There are absolutely no concerns there. So I fully expect him to be in the starting 11 tonight.
Good stuff. And am I right in thinking Andy Carroll's picked up yet another knock?
Unfortunately, yes. The good news, it's not too serious. It looks like it's a bit of a groin problem. He's certainly out of Sunday's game against Wolverhampton Wanderers. Tests are ongoing, and it could actually rule him out a game against his former employers, West Ham, which is coming up soon as well. So we wait and see, for a definitive prognosis on that one.
And Paul Pogba, what's the latest?
Paul Pogba, well, he's definitely out of Sunday's game. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has been very coy on nailing down a particular sort of timeline on his return to play. However, we've been looking at the injury and just looking at the analysis from his social media posts and the type of problem that he's picked up. It could still be several weeks before Pogba's in a position to return to play. So my own thinking is that at this moment we're maybe looking after the next international break, which will be towards the end of November. But again, there's still no official confirmation from the club, so we wait and hear something from them on that.
Just a little suspicion of mine is that he's not necessarily injured. Is there any foundation for that, do you think?
No, I wouldn't think so. I mean, he's walking around with his right leg heavily bandaged. He's non-weight bearing. He's partial weight bearing. He's got a crutch there. I would say it's highly unlikely. Whatever goes on sort of behind the scenes, I think ultimately, Pogba still wants to be out there on the pitch. And Solskjaer actually said that he was playing through the pain barrier. When he returned against Arsenal and he played in the Carabao Cup against Rochdale. And we have to take these things as said. I think it's probably an issue that's been exacerbated by, possibly a return to play, a little bit too soon. So that's what's maybe causing the delay. We've seen he's been out and doing some fitness work in the Middle East. Now we'll concentrate hopefully on, getting back to a return to play as soon as possible.
One I was really keen to ask you about, it's a very strange one, was David De Gea. Comes off for Spain, and I saw a report saying he could be out for 2 months, and he lines up against Liverpool. What happened there, do we know?
Yeah, well, so those initial reports, and it's always difficult when, I suppose, people are looking to maybe create headlines and so on and so forth. And these are always difficult when we're picking up international injuries. We wait for the injury to settle down within sort of 24 to 48 hours, and then obviously returning to United to be assessed by their medical team. And yeah, it didn't look great, and I've seen those 2 months timelines suggested. I never ever thought that was the case. That would indicate that it was quite a severe, muscular tear or soft tissue injury, which certainly didn't seem the case. De Gea did look a little bit uncomfortable, and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer said he was probably a doubt. But once that injury settled down, he wasn't 100% against that Liverpool. But, he was in a position to be able to sort of play, and he was rested on Thursday night. He still hasn't been training fully, but he will be in the squad to face Norwich on Sunday.
Good stuff. And Matip and Trent Alexander missed the Champions League tie with Genk. Will they be fit for the weekend?
Alexander-Arnold, we're fairly confident. Typically with this illness, stroke virus, 2 to 3 days recovery, and we would expect to see him back. The concern would be with Joel Matip. There's a little bit of inflammation around the knee, and he's been carrying that problem for almost a month now. They were hoping that it would settle over the international break. He picked up a knock at Old Trafford, and the knee was swollen up again. Now, the issue, I suppose, Jurgen Klopp can look at the likes of Dejan Lovren or Joe Gomez, who can, easily slot in alongside Virgil van Dijk. So my thoughts were, if there are any concerns, or if they just need to take Matip out of the 11 for a game or two to rest that, then he's got players who are more than capable of slotting in, and that could be the case this weekend.
Last couple I just want to touch on. Chris Wood for Burnley and Ross Barkley as well. What's the latest on those two?
So Chris Wood, he's managing, reported as a tight hamstring. So that's we've got to be careful when we're talking about tight muscular injuries like this. because what we don't want to do is rush players back and potentially cause a tear or a strain which could rule players out for a little bit longer. The return of Ashley Barnes will help. So Sean Dyche, could look at Ashley Barnes and J. Rodriguez to start up front for Burnley. And maybe, like I say, keep either Chris Wood on the bench or just remove him from the matchday squad altogether. It's a coin toss with that one, a 50-50. And with regards to Ross Bartley, he suffered what was reported as a nasty ankle injury again in the win over Newcastle. He rolled his ankle, but he has responded really well to treatment. He's been back on the training pitches, so hopefully he can get a full session in before this weekend, and he's in with a chance of featuring.
Great stuff, Ben. As always, appreciate you coming on.
Thanks, Richie. Cheers. Thanks.
Great
Bye.
stuff. Ben Dinnery there, injury analyst, giving us the latest on the injuries in the Premier League this weekend. We're going to be talking a bit of Premier League after this. Of course, there is a full list of fixtures. In fact, tonight as well. Tonight, Saturday and Sunday. Looks like being an interesting weekend as ever, Patrick.
Yeah, well, look, absolutely. I think Leicester, I'm expecting them to do big things tonight, that's for sure. But it could be an interesting one for the Premier League fixtures, because what a weekend of sport it is in general, actually, because you've got the Rugby World Cup, 9 a.m, England beat the All Blacks, so you'll have been nicely lubricated for that, and then you end up getting stuck into the Premier League fixtures, which, let's be honest, you don't really remember.
I feel like we focused a lot on how early you're allowed to drink. This seems to be
we've answered that question now,
That's
mate.
already done,
The answer is a 7:30 start tomorrow is A-OK.
So is it like you get an excuse, you get a day pass when you've got an event like this? Does it have to be a semi-final? What about a quarter-final? Would that still apply, or really semi-final
No.
onwards?
I think semi-final, quarter-final.
Yeah.
Involving your own nation. You can't just do it because.
Yeah, true, because there's always something
Because there's
going
always
on.
something, isn't it? I mean, obviously, that's why I'm never allowed back at the curling.
17 minutes to 10.
You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah? Really? It's just, there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it.
Sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
Full of skill, full of flair, full of desire. Fulham FC is full of fire. Oh, what a goal! Be there at Craven Cottage as Fulham continue their surge towards the top of the Sky Bet Championship. Watch the unmissable action live in SW6, home of London's original football club. Absolutely brilliant. Grab your tickets now at fulhamfc.com.
When looking for the best possible deal for his car insurance, Jim went on a spokesmansaid.com and saved hundreds.
I'm Jim. I'm a radio presenter based in Glasgow. I couldn't believe how expensive the car insurance for our Citroen C4 Picasso was going to be from my existing insurer. I went on a Spokesman Said and saved an incredible £600. Just amazing.
Find quotes from over 100 leading insurance providers at a spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
When your kids are ill, you just want to help them feel better. But you don't always need antibiotics. Get advice from your local pharmacy or search NHS Choices.
There are many things a mother can pass on to her baby. Her smile, her eye colour, and her immunity to whooping cough. Whooping cough is a very dangerous illness for young babies, and at the moment it's spreading fast. A simple vaccination during your pregnancy can help to protect your baby in their first weeks. Please speak to your GP, nurse, or healthcare professional and pass on your immunity.
This is Love Sport.
Love Sport Breakfast, me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys, for another 15 minutes or so. Then, of course, Martin Bell is up after us. We'll be talking a little bit of Lewis Hamilton now, and who better to help us than Kieran Wellington?
Oh, meteorologist.
I've not been for a while, actually.
Yeah, you've not been on meteorology for a while. There's been no weather, has there?
It's just
No,
been
that's
very
it. There's
grey.
been no weather because Extinction Rebellion have cancelled the weather.
Oh, yeah.
True, and actually, the Woolwich Ferry's just been running fine for the last couple of months, so we haven't had any banter about that either. So, there you go.
It's taken all our material away.
Kind of has. So let's talk about Lewis Hamilton instead, shall we?
Yeah, and I mentioned Extinction Rebellion because, of course, Lewis Hamilton is very green-fingered, the F1 racing driver, but very climate conscious, and he's had a chance to respond to his critics. Of course, he put that Instagram story up of him saying he wants to end it or doesn't want to live on this planet anymore because of the way we're treating the planet. got quickly deleted because you should imagine Lewis has got some management going, Lewis, you can't put that, Lewis!
Yeah.
And he deleted it quite quickly.
Yeah.
But he says there's a lot going on in his life, and that he just wants to go back to what he loves doing, which clearly isn't F1, because he makes no reference to being an F1 racing driver in his Instagram bio. I just think this is a deeply disturbed man.
When he says go back to, what does the message say then, going back to what he loves doing?
Yeah, it's a strange one because, it's obviously the Mexican Grand Prix this weekend, and that's what he says. He's trying to bat off, I think, any reference to this Instagram post a little bit by saying, he just wants to focus on the F1. So he is a bit of a tortured individual.
Right. So, posh people, climate change, shut up. Because he's gone, I sold my plane over a year ago. I fly a lot less now. I'm trying to fly less through the year. I'm mostly flying commercials. So that's been a big change in my habits. Right. I'm sorry, but you deciding to bin the private jet, which you used to take everywhere with you pretty much, to fly commercial is not a massive change in your habits. Because what these people still say is, when I fly commercial, I'm damaging the environment. The idea that you at once in your life had such a huge amount of privilege that you could choose to fly in a private jet, and now you've fallen on your big sword made out of money, and you decided to fly commercial, and that makes you a better person, but I'm bad for flying commercial. By that logic, I would have to take a boat everywhere to make the same kind of sacrifice that you have made to not carve the face off nature. So I'm not really having that.
No, absolutely. I kind of agree with Patrick. But let's Lewis Hamilton's quotes continue. I am only human, like everyone. I have up and down days, and that is what I've been trying to convey. It is very difficult for people who are watching on social media to relate to certain individuals who live in a celebrity world. I mean, strange to kind of play the victim here.
Yeah.
It's classic, mate. It's classic celeb stuff, this, which is, I'm going to throw something out here, or you disagree with it. You don't really know what's going on in my life. Yeah. All right. Well, you still said it, though, didn't you? Well, not be funny, but if I turn up to work and I lose it, right, which has happened, and I go to my boss, oh, I'm sorry, Gaffer, there's a load going on in my private life. He goes, right, well, you've got a lot of time to sort it out now because you're sacked. That's the way the world works, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
How many people have got a lot going on in their lives?
I'm sat in the middle somewhere here, and the reason is that what I would say is it's all relative. Like, I know that it's easy to look at it and be like, oh, I don't know, you've got millions of pounds, you've got success, you've got da-da-da. The whole point is it's all relative. If someone lacks awareness, if someone lacks direction, then it's
like Steve Coogan coming out the other day. I've always been environmentally conscious. You own a fleet of supercars, mate. Like, you own some of the largest gas-guzzling vehicles that the world has ever produced.
But you've
not always been environmentally conscious,
and
mate.
I don't disagree with your point. In fact, I agree with your point. I suppose, right, this is what happens, I guess, is you go from the day-to-day where all you're trying to do is, say, make a living initially. And then you go through that, and all of a sudden you get this huge success, and you have more money than you need, and then your focus then turns somewhere else. And then maybe it's you get that awareness that, oh, okay, perhaps we need to make some changes here.
Yeah.
Now, at that point, you've almost gone through what 99% of the world are going through now.
Yeah,
so
but I don't like the implication of that message, which is that he goes, I don't want to live on this, in this world anymore because people don't care about the world. The implication there is, if everybody was like me, then the world would be fine.
It's
and
sat
that's
up on a
what
pedestal.
I don't like.
Yeah, it's sat up on a pedestal. It's, I don't know. I can understand where his mindset might be. Again, put yourself in his shoes. How bizarre is that as well? I made the point we had a caller the other day, didn't we? And I made the point where it must be so strange where you direct all your life towards something and you have this belief that when you are the F1 winner and you've got millions, literally tens of millions, might even be hundreds of millions now in Lewis Hamilton's case, in the bank. So you've got no financial need. He's obviously a decent looking guy. He's got all these different commercial contracts. Everything, he's completed it. Life completed it.
Yeah.
Literally. And then it's that feeling of, oh, what now? What is he, early 30s is he now? Like, what next? Kind of, I'm done. It must be so strange. That post to me, that seemed like that, where he's now looking for the next level and he doesn't know where it is because there isn't a next level. And that must be kind of strange.
I'll tell you what he could do, if he really wanted to. He could move back into the house that he first grew up in Stevenage. I think he actually once described that as like the slums or something as well in a tweet.
Yeah, no, he did. He referenced his hometown.
Posted a picture of his house or something. That's all right. It's fine. He could give it all away and start
They
again.
might do. What ends up happening with a lot of people that get to that level, they do that. They end up finding a project to give themselves value. They end up flying over to India or whatever, or flying over to Africa in order to kind of help with less privilege, because that then makes them feel more valued in the moment. Or they go down the spiritual path and you lose them to spirituality. Like, that might happen. I think Lewis Hamilton's going down that road.
Yeah, potentially. Did you ever think about doing that, Rich?
I'm intrigued by it. I am. I've
About
looked
what?
into
Sorry,
it.
spirituality.
I'm intrigued. I'm like, look, I'm open. It's one of them where I'm very much involved in. I love what we do here. I love the different interests I've got. I love football. So I've got my things that give me real passion. But there are, of course, we all have those times where you must consider, all right, is there something? I just think, though, what the difficulty is that I'm not nowhere near Lewis Hamilton's level. Imagine you get to that level where you've... What is the point? You wake up, you don't need to go and work because you're fine. You can live for the next 50 lives and you've got more than enough money, so that's not your motivation anymore. You're probably bored of winning. You win every week. Like, does that give you so much of a buzz anymore? Like, what is next?
Yeah, but this is what is the real shame about Lewis Hamilton. Like, because he's deeply unlikable, but is genuinely one of the best British sportsmen we've ever had, like, in history. Like, if we're expecting him not to win in Mexico this week, Valtteri Bottas would have to finish lower than 5th for Lewis to seal it. But we're expecting him to win next week in Austin. And that would be his 6th world title.
Yeah, I think there's a limit to all this stuff, which is that if he calls it a day at the end of the season, you'd probably be a bit like, oh, okay, fair enough, like maybe the year after. But if he's still going on about this, looking miserable, claiming to be doing something that doesn't really excite him anymore, in about 3 or 4 years' time, then I'm sorry, I just don't listen to him anymore.
There probably is a case that he'll do that, and that's because he won't know what his next step is. And he'll be scared of. By the way, imagine he just quit F1, which is probably what he's thinking of doing right now, but he's not going to, because then what? What do you go and do? Like, this is all he knows. Like, look, that's the bit I get. And also, the other thing I'll say is where it's all relative is, look, imagine any of us can take this on board, is that all of a sudden things become normal. Let's say you get that pay rise or you get that huge promotion, you double your money. And at the moment you think, oh my God, I'm going to be happy for the rest of my days because I've now achieved what it is that I want to achieve. I promise you within a month, it's normal. And you've got the same emotions you had a month ago, but in a different way. That's all it is. Whether it's a Lewis Hamilton or whether it is someone who is working 12 hours a day, there'll be similar emotions that he's going through because he's so used to being at that level now. You don't live on cloud 9 all day, every day.
No, I get that, but you don't have to lecture people and basically say, well, look, if every single person was like me, then the world would be a better place.
Yeah, well, it's an interesting topic. Let us know what you think. 0208 70 20 558.
Yeah, I just want to finish the show with a bit of a rousing call to the England rugby players.
Come on, boys!
Yep, let's do it.
This is the biggest game of their careers. This is probably the biggest game of Eddie Jones's career, despite the fact he has had many, many years in coaching. And it's all kind of led towards this. But the Tokyo weather is led to a few issues. So there's been massive downpours overnight. And actually there's some great images coming through on the TV today that they're basically wading through huge puddles in training. And it might actually force us to change our travel arrangements last minute. So basically the Red Roses squad 30-mile coach journey took more than an hour to their training session. And obviously you want everything to go smoothly, don't you? On a big match day like that, Rich, how important is kind of the build-up and the travel? You want everything to go smoothly, don't
huge.
you?
Yeah, huge. In the days leading up, and especially with this, you've got a week between each game, so you've got plenty of time. You want the warm downs to be correct. If they've got time off, they want their sleep schedule, the way in which they eat. It's everything. It's a tiny, tiny details. There's nothing worse. And I've had it where you turn up on a Saturday, 3 o'clock, and you feel fatigued. And sometimes you don't even know why. Sometimes you feel like you have prepared well. But it might be something whereby an alarm goes off at 2 a.m. in the hotel, and you've got 3 or 4 players that have got a disrupted sleep because of it. Or you turn up at the hotel and the beds aren't particularly comfortable, and you get the 2 or 3 players that actually are quite particular when it comes to their sleeping arrangement. Like, you just don't know. So what they want is they want to make sure that each player is 100% ready, and that's all those tiny little details. You only need 2 or 3 players that are off it, and that could be costly.
Yeah, absolutely. Some of the pictures coming out, the big England players splashing around. We were talking about Carl Sinclair earlier. It's just great, isn't it, to see all these big rugby players just splashing around in puddles like they're children.
I love it. I think it's only going to suit England, though, isn't it? Like, this is when you were growing up playing the game. You know, you were playing on mud baths, weren't you?
Yeah. Well, apparently it's not due to rain tomorrow in Tokyo, so that's good news. Scrum coach Neil Hatley was asked about the difficult commute, and he said the rain was a bit of a factor. It was about 10 minutes longer than expected, so we'll have a look. The logistics have been brilliant, though, the whole tournament, which is true. I mean, Japan have done wonders, really, for this tournament. and it's not due to rain on Saturday. I'm pretty sure we'll get that 10 minutes back. Matchday preps are meticulously planned, so any hold-up in the journey to the stadium is an inconvenience which may disrupt plans. However, England have been at pains to emphasise their ability to adapt to such disruptive circumstances, and they have even deliberately arrived late prior to matches in order to practice altering their pre-kick-off preparation routine. So they've actually planned for this, Rich.
Yeah.
It's very interesting, like the meticulous nature of Eddie Jones.
That's brilliant. And do you know what? This is where we spoke about it a lot last summer, didn't we? With Gareth Southgate and the tiny, tiny little details. But they are important. It's not necessarily, and we say this, it's not necessarily those individual things that will make the difference, but it's a culmination. And it's actually also a feeling of confidence for the players to know that you've got someone in charge that does take care of the details.
Yeah, and I think as well as an impact here that Eddie Jones, clearly being half Japanese and having coached the Japanese team as well, I actually think that's kind of a massive issue at play, because you've got a manager there who is so at home, literally in that country, and who's been there loads of times before, knows it like the back of his hand, and that actually has to have an impact on your players, I think.
Yeah. So, Kieran, out of interest, where will you be watching it, and how do you think it will go?
Well, I'll be watching it in my front room, but I'll make sure to stock up on the beers for Patrick.
What time are you going to start, mate?
Probably about 8, I'd say, hour before kickoff.
8 a.m. hour before kickoff. What about you, Rich?
Start what?
Start the old boozeroo.
Wow.
The old Booze Express.
It's too early, Patrick.
Alcatrain.
It's definitely too early.
Choo choo. Next stop, Funville.
I will be watching the game, and I'll be watching it with an orange juice. On that note, as always, thank you. It's been a great week. Do appreciate it, Kieran. Do appreciate it, Patrick. Do stay tuned, because, of course, Martin Bell and Johnny Sperling, I believe, are up straight after us. Certainly Martin Bell is up straight after us. So do stay tuned for that. Great show. We're going to be back next week, 6:30 a.m. Monday. We will see you there.
This is Love Sport.
Every day someone dies waiting for a